Hey guys, tonight we journey to the golden dust of the Mali Empire where the sand sticks to your lips. The sun blurs the horizon, and breakfast comes before the camels have even blinked awake. You're curled up on a rough woven mat, cloaked in your sleep wrap, with the dry morning air whistling through your camp's makeshift windbreak. All around you, traders grunt and stir, bells jangle on restless donkeys, and somewhere nearby, a goat has decided it's a soprano. Your first bite of the day, a chunk of stale millet flatbread probably baked 2 days ago, now chewier than you'd prefer, and with just a hint of last night's dust storm. It's the sort of snack that requires more jaw strength than enthusiasm. But hey, it's what's on offer. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere particularly cozy or not, post your city and local time in the comments. I'd love to know where you're drifting off from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge out of the sleeping zone, your sandals leaving half-hearted prints in the ochre dust. The air is dry enough to chap lips by just thinking about talking. Around you, bundles are being hoisted, water skins checked, and for some reason, a young boy is yelling at a goat as if it personally insulted his mother. Classic Mali morning. Your hands are still sticky with sleep when the head trader, your temporary employer, throws a chunk of leftover flatbread your way. It hits your shoulder, bounces to the ground, and gathers even more sand than it started with. You pick it up, dust it off with the same effort you'd use to brush off a sibling's opinion, and bite in. It's dense, not unpleasant, just functional. This is not a food designed for flavor. It's designed to not disintegrate after 3 days of being strapped to a donkey's rump. It tastes like effort, and maybe yesterday's sun. As you chew and blink at the rising sun, the caravan slowly unfolds around you like a groggy centipede. A griot begins humming a tune near the water pots. A few traders barter loudly over salt weights they probably tampered with overnight. And a camel makes eye contact with you. It's an aggressive sort of eye contact. The kind that says, "I know what you did near the fire pit last night." You look away first. The camel wins. This is your third week on the move, part of a ragtag crew ferrying goods between the inner forests and the dry mouth of the desert. You're not sure if you're actually needed or just along for someone's tax write-off. Either way, you're here now, crunching breakfast and trying not to think about your last clean tunic that mysteriously vanished during a sandstorm argument. Historians still argue whether the early mornings in Mali's trade routes were more about efficiency or tradition. Some suggest the desert dictated everything. Others believe the empire's work ethic was so embedded in cultural pride that sleeping past dawn was basically treason. Either way, you're awake, millet in mouth, sun in eyes, and absolutely no say in it. There's a legend passed around campfires about a merchant who once overslept and lost his entire trade permit to a monkey that stole his papers and started a fire. You're 70% sure it's exaggerated, but in Mali, monkeys are clever, and bureaucracy is ruthless. Better not risk it. As the sun climbs, the air warms to something vaguely threatening. The morning breeze fades like a forgotten promise, and sweat appears uninvited on your back. You finish your dry bread with the quiet resignation of someone who knows lunch is at least 8 hours and 1 camel tantrum away. You move to the pack beast you've been assigned, an old donkey with one good eye and a distinct aversion to your voice. You pat its side. It huffs. Mutual respect. Sort of. Near the lead carts, the trader lord who owns the bulk of this caravan is biting into a fig wrapped in cloth of gold. You squint figs at dawn. Someone's compensating. You briefly imagine slipping into his tent and replacing the figs with pebbles. But your stomach growls and reminds you that even crunchy bread is a privilege out here. As the group begins to roll out, you tuck the last crumb of millet into your cheek, pirate style, and scan the horizon. Ahead lies sand, sweat, shady merchants, and if rumors are true, a stop in Timbuktu within 3 days. There, you're told, are markets full of better snacks, real stories, and maybe even shade that doesn't smell like camel. But for now, it's just you, the caravan, and the vague taste of yesterday's breakfast glued to your molars. You've been staring at the same goat's tail for hours. It bobs along with each lazy step, hypnotic in its dusty rhythm. Around you, the caravan stretches like a line of ants that forgot where the sugar was. Your stomach growls again louder this time, and you start fantasizing about edible things that don't require chisels to chew. That's when the caravan halts, a sudden yell from the front, followed by that satisfying clatter of baskets hitting the ground. You don't know who shouted or why, but it's your favorite sound of the day, the one that usually means break time. You slip off your donkey with the grace of a sack of grain and stretch your legs. Somewhere, someone's already got a fire going. But you're heading for the salted goat cheese. You tug open your pouch and find it tucked safely next to your emergency date stash. The cheese is hard, crumbly, and has all the charm of a brick wrapped in cloth, but it's your brick, and you're oddly fond of it. You snap off a chunk, and your fingers instantly feel the grainy crust of sand and salt. That's the thing with the Mali Empire's goat cheese flavor wasn't the point. Durability was. You sit cross-legged under a scraggly acacia, chewing the chalky cheese and watching a small group of traders argue over the weight of their salt slabs. One claims his slab is extra blessed, and thus should fetch more cloth. Another counters that his was closer to the ocean, which makes it saltier. You're not sure if anyone's actually telling the truth, or just creatively negotiating while hungry. Historians still argue whether salt in Mali was primarily a trade currency or a social flex. Some say it was more valuable than gold, which sounds dramatic until you realize how impossible it is to stay alive out here without it. Gold won't keep your meat from rotting. Salt, on the other hand, is magic in crystal form. You finish your cheese just as a local woman walks by selling tamarind paste wrapped in leaves. You consider it but decide you're not ready for that emotional commitment. Tamarind has a tendency to sneak up on your taste buds like a prankster with a lemon. Instead, you focus on licking the salt from your fingers, partly because it's delicious, partly because your water skin is down to a hopeful drizzle. The sun's climbing now, and the air has lost all pretense of being gentle. You shift into the narrow shade of your donkey, who side-eyes you but tolerates the intrusion. You consider bribing it with some of your emergency dates, but remember last time, it bit your hand. Donkeys, like most animals out here, take no nonsense. There's a rustle beside you. A boy about 12 drops beside your mat and offers you a thin slice of dried fig from a pouch that looks suspiciously noble. You raise an eyebrow. "Where'd you get that?" He shrugs. "Found it near the big tent." You both know he didn't find it, but you accept the fig anyway. It's rich, sticky, and unmistakably flavored with privilege. You chew slowly, eyes on the horizon, pretending you're someone important with a golden plate and not someone whose socks haven't matched in 4 days. "Think we'll reach Timbuktu before night?" the boy asks. "Sure," you say. "And maybe they'll give us silk pillows and roasted duck, too." He laughs and tosses you another fig piece. It's nice, this quiet moment of stolen sweetness in the dust. You lean back, your head against a saddlebag, and let your body settle into the kind of relaxed slouch that only happens when you're full and slightly dehydrated. A fly lands on your ear. You swat it. It returns. You swat again. This continues until your dignity gives up and you pull your turban lower. No snack in Mali is complete without the buzzing of insects demanding their share. A few feet away, an old man cracks open a clay jar and offers around slivers of dried goat liver, an acquired taste, which you've decided not to acquire. Someone else hands out what's either candy or wax. You pass, you're a fan of not gluing your teeth together mid-desert. One of the griots starts telling a story, something about a dog that betrayed a sorcerer and got turned into a mango tree. You don't follow the plot, but the rhythm is soothing, and the cheese is sitting nicely now. You wonder briefly if that goat was noble-born. Probably not, but you like the idea of it. And that's the thing about snacks in the Mali Empire. They're not just food, they're currency, culture, and conversation. One bite might mean friendship, 2 bites might mean a bribe. And if you offer someone the last piece, that's either love or a desperate attempt to get rid of something awful. You pat your belly, feel the salt lingering on your lips, and start gathering your things. The caravan is stirring again. Traders barking instructions, camels complaining in tones that feel personal, and that goat's tail back in front of you, still bouncing, still dusty. You sigh, hoist your pack, and fall into step. The fig was good, the cheese, terrible, but this is breakfast in Mali. By midday, the heat is less of a suggestion and more of a physical force, wrapping itself around your body like a blanket left too long in the fire. Your feet ache, your back resents your life choices, and the only thing louder than your thoughts is the occasional hiss of hot wind kicking sand into your socks. So when you reach the outer edge of Timbuktu and spot the low clay walls of the Great Mosque casting a long shadow across the sand, it feels like stumbling upon an oasis, even if it smells faintly of camel and roasted onions. You slip away from the group the moment nobody's watching well, except the donkeys, and they don't count, and make your way toward that thin sliver of shade behind the mosque. You're not the only one with this idea. A few other travelers are already there, fanning themselves with palm fronds, lying flat like discarded rugs, or nibbling quietly on whatever they've managed to scavenge. You find a spot by the wall and settle in, pulling from your pouch the last of your morning millet, this time topped with a thick smear of golden forest honey. It's soft from the sun, already beginning to melt. You tear off a chunk and chew slowly, the sticky sweetness blooming across your tongue. For the first time in hours, you close your eyes and let the flavors take up more space than your discomfort. Honey in the Mali Empire was a luxury, but not unattainable. Beekeepers dotted the forests and grasslands to the south, and traders carried pots of the stuff wrapped in cloth and wedged between spices. Historians still argue whether it was considered a delicacy or just a particularly valuable trade good. But you know one thing, it makes millet taste like a reward instead of a punishment. You watch a merchant nearby pull dates from a woven pouch, arrange them neatly in rows on a flat stone, and then immediately eat half. The remaining dates he leaves out, possibly for trade or possibly because he's hoping someone attractive walks by and mistakes him for generous. You debate wandering over and complimenting the symmetry of his date layout, but decide against it. You're not in a flirting mood. You're in a snacking and not moving mood. A few moments later, a boy no older than 10 walks up holding a carved gourd. He offers it to you with one eyebrow raised. You lift the lid and smell something nutty. Earthy, definitely fermented. Probably ground millet soaked in palm sap, or maybe ginger water. You take a sip and feel it fizz softly on your tongue. Not bad. Your stomach makes a hopeful sound. The boy watches you drink, then holds out his hand. You give him a date from your pouch. He disappears, satisfied. This is the backdoor economy of Mali trade by nibble, barter by bite. If you share, you eat better. If you're stingy, your meals are dry and your company drier. The call to prayer rings out across the rooftops, low and melodic, folding itself over the chatter of the market. Some rise to wash and prepare. Others continue lounging. You, full of honeyed grain and fizzy gourd drink, simply stretch your legs and feel the cobblestones press cool shapes into your back. One of the elders near the wall begins humming a tune. It's wordless, slow, and half familiar, maybe a traveling song or a prayer disguised as melody. You let it seep into your bones. Timbuktu has that effect. Sounds seem slower here, like the city itself breathes in time with the sand. As the sun dips slightly and shadows lengthen, a woman walks past selling a snack wrapped in woven reed, roasted peanuts mixed with honey, and crushed ginger. You wave her down. She eyes your pouch. You trade a strip of cloth dyed with indigo for 2 parcels. One you eat now, one you pocket for later, because hope is edible too. The first bite is magic. Sweet, spicy, with that familiar bite of ginger just hot enough to remind you that you're still alive. You wonder if she made it herself, or if this was some genius cook's roadside invention. Either way, you're grateful. This is the kind of snack you write songs about, or whisper to your future self when the millet goes back to tasting like regret. The air begins to cool. People rise and stretch, dusting themselves off. Someone nearby accidentally knocks over a water jug. The splash is brief, the shouting longer. You savor the final bite of your honeyed peanut bundle and lick your fingers, letting the stickiness linger like a badge of honor. You rejoin the caravan reluctantly. The traders are gathering again, bundles reshuffled, donkeys reloaded, complaints recycled. But your belly is full, your lips still tingling from ginger, and your mind momentarily far from the desert. As you pass the edge of the mosque, you look back at the quiet little nook behind it. It's still there, cool, hidden, soft with the echoes of chewed snacks and half-whispered stories. It's not much, but in the empire of gold and salt, a patch of shade and a sweet bite can feel like treasure. The sun dips lower as you make your way out of Timbuktu, its golden light slicing across the low clay rooftops and turning everything the color of warm tea. Your donkey is in a better mood now, possibly because you fed it half a date during your last break, or possibly because the winds changed direction and no longer whistles directly into its ears. Either way, you're grateful for the peace. You leave the outer walls behind and veer off the main track, just far enough from the caravan to dodge the worst of the dust clouds. There's a path here, barely visible, that runs along a trickling river, more a stream. Really, but it's just enough for the trees to grow thick and weird. And that's where you spot it. A baobab tree, old, wide, knotted like it's storing secrets in its trunk. It's squat and unimpressed by your presence. You've passed a dozen just like it before. But this one has a few cracked fruits dangling like prehistoric lanterns. Your stomach tightens in curiosity. You park your donkey under the tree, hoping it won't wander off or develop strong opinions while you're gone. With a bit of reaching, jumping, and mild personal humiliation, you finally snap a low-hanging baobab pod. It's heavy, dry, shaped like a giant kidney bean. You crack it open on a flat rock, and inside are brittle clumps of white powdery pulp surrounding small seeds. The taste tart, sharp, somewhere between sour candy and dust. You suck on one of the clumps, and it coats your mouth in something chalky but weirdly refreshing. It wakes you up in a way coffee wishes it could. You don't love it, but you don't hate it either. It's functional, and oddly satisfying. Baobab fruit has a long history in this region. It's rich in vitamin C, great for digestion, and according to a passing merchant you once overheard, excellent for cleansing bad spirits from your spleen. Historians still argue whether that's literal or metaphorical, but either way, you decide to eat a second piece just in case. A group of young kids passes by on the other side of the stream, carrying small woven baskets. They wave. One of them yells something about a fish trap downstream. You yell back something polite that also implies you're too tired to participate in whatever mischief they're plotting. They accept this and move on, disappearing into the bush like gossip into a crowded kitchen. You sit back under the baobab, the fruit pod now half emptied in your lap, and stretch your legs into the dusty grass. The sun's angled perfectly behind the branches, casting that latticework shadow pattern that makes you feel like you're inside some old storybook. You peel back a seed, flick it across the dirt, and chew more of the sour pulp. A soft breeze kicks up, rustling the leaves and carrying with it the distant sounds of the caravan. You've got maybe another 20 minutes before someone comes looking for you, or worse, assigns you to night watch out of sheer spite. You consider staying hidden, just long enough to pretend you're lost and deserve the rest shift. A monkey appears, just like that out of nowhere. It's small, gray, with that look monkeys always have, like it's judging your fashion choices and would absolutely steal your lunch if you blinked. You both stare at each other for a few seconds. It eyes the baobab fruit. You eye your donkey, wondering if it'll help if things go south. Spoiler, it won't. You toss the monkey a chunk of pulp. It catches it with infuriating grace, sniffs it, and then shoves the entire thing into its mouth. Rude. It makes a chirping noise that you choose to interpret as thank you, even though it's probably you should bring more next time. The monkey hangs around for a while, popping up into the tree like it owns the place, and starts shaking another pod loose. You stay longer than you should. There's something quietly perfect about this moment. A full belly, a shady tree, a mouth puckered with baobab pulp, and a monkey clearly planning your robbery. It's not peaceful in the conventional sense, but it's Molly peaceful. Eventually, duty calls. Specifically, the duty of not being yelled at by that one caravan leader who takes everything personally. You stand, brush the dust from your tunic, and gather the remaining bits of the pod. You stuff them into your pouch for later because, even if you're not wild about the taste, it beats chewing on raw millet or arguing with a camel over territory. As you start back down the path, the monkey hurls a seed at your head. It misses. Barely. You tip your turban to it, which might have been a mistake, because it immediately makes a very rude noise in response. You reach the caravan just as it's preparing to settle for the evening. Fires are being lit, pots unpacked, complaints launched like arrows. You blend in, nod to your donkey like your old friends, and prepare for whatever the evening meal will be. But in your pouch, there's a little piece of tart, dusty fruit, and somehow it makes everything feel a bit less heavy. Evening descends slowly in the Sahel, like a blanket laid out inch by inch, and with it comes the smell of cooking fires, sweat, and very questionable stew. You drop your pack beside a circle of traders who are halfway through arguing about who actually owns the best kettle. No one has evidence. Everyone has opinions. The fire crackles. You lower yourself onto a mat that has seen better centuries and stretch out your legs, hoping someone near the pot feels generous. And then, like a miracle wrapped in gossip, a kitchen servant from the palace outpost wanders by with a woven basket full of scraps. Now, when you hear palace leftovers, you might imagine golden trays and sugared dates. But here in the Mali Empire, palace scraps mean exactly that, what the nobles didn't finish. Today's offerings: bits of roasted yam, charred ends of chicken, and a sticky clump of rice that's either seasoned or just very, very old. You reach for a piece of yam and find yourself shoulder to shoulder with two women whispering fast enough to stir the air. They're deep in a debate about one of the royal kitchen stewards specifically, whether his new turban is hiding baldness or a secret lover's charm. You pretend not to listen, which is difficult because the yam is dry and needs distraction. As you chew slowly, because these scraps are tougher than gossip, you catch snippets about an apprentice cook who burned a tray of fish and then claimed it was intentional smoke flavoring. Another voice chimes in about a noble's daughter who refused to eat anything unless it was arranged in perfect circles. Historians still argue whether such stories reflect real culinary traditions or just centuries of dramatic flair passed down with every stew recipe. You snag a chewy piece of chicken skin and wonder if this was from a festival bird. It has that overcooked, smoky taste of something roasted by someone trying too hard. You dip it in a bit of sauce scooped from a broken gourd, salty, sour, vaguely spicy. Not bad. You've definitely had worse. Once, someone gave you mashed termites and tried to pass it off as spiced lentils. That was a dark day. The women continue talking, now debating the hierarchy of the kitchen. Apparently, the guy who stirs the millet isn't on speaking terms with the woman who grills the river fish, and their passive-aggressive feud has escalated into accidental spice overuse. You nod sympathetically. Kitchen politics in the Mali Empire are more treacherous than caravan routes during the rainy season. A boy appears beside you, eyes wide, mouth full. He mumbles something about banana ash stew and hands you a half-finished rice cake before disappearing into the shadows like a food-based ghost. You nibble. It's dense, sweetened with something that might be date paste or molasses. Either way, it's better than the yam. A trader to your left starts bragging about having eaten at the emperor's hunting camp once. Says the meat was so fresh, it still twitched. You're not sure if he means that literally, or if he's just bad at metaphors. Another claims he once watched a noble test a cook by making him roast a goat on a single coal. You raise an eyebrow, and how did that end? Goat was raw, the trader shrugs, but the cook had charisma. There's laughter. It's warm, unforced. For a few minutes, everyone's chewing, talking, leaning into the glow of the fire. You let yourself relax. Fingers still sticky with sauce, lips dry from too much yam and not enough water. Someone passes around a cup of palm wine, and even though it smells like a wet rug, you sip. It burns going down, but you feel braver afterward, which is probably the point. Behind you, one of the guards is snoring like he's auditioning to be a drum. A woman to your right is peeling roasted cassava with a dagger, muttering that her husband's cousins are thieves in human skin. You offer her a scrap of rice cake. She grunts, which is, in this case, a thank you. Later, as the fire burns lower, the servant returns with more scraps, a piece of dried fig, a sliver of plantain, even something that looks like part of a honey cake. You marvel. Maybe tonight's noble dinner went poorly. Maybe someone got offended by the shape of a stew. Whatever the reason, you're reaping the benefits. You lean back, head tilted toward the stars, belly full of other people's rejected food and secondhand scandal. You think about the cooks, the real ones deep in the palace kitchens, stirring giant pots, shouting over clanging lids, whispering recipes like spells. There's something comforting about knowing that no matter how grand the empire, people still complain about whose turn it is to wash dishes. You lick the last of the fig syrup from your thumb and sigh. It's not the best meal you've ever had, but it came with stories, company, and more calories than a day of millet could dream of. And in this empire of gold and grit, that's a pretty decent end to the day. The stars are starting to spill across the sky like careless jewels, but you're still wide awake thanks to the palm wine, the sugar rush from that mystery honey cake, and the low-key anxiety of knowing you'll probably be assigned to camel duty again tomorrow. You wander a bit, stretching your legs, trying to walk off the fullness in your belly. The firelight behind you dims as voices fade into yawns and rustling mats. A few figures stay awake, trading quiet laughs and sharper whispers in the dark. Somewhere, someone starts plucking a one-stringed lute. You recognize the tune. It's an old song about river spirits and unpaid debts. The usual. Just when you're considering lying down, a familiar scent drifts your way dates. Sweet, soft, the smell of good fortune and slight stomachache if you overdo it. You follow the scent to a narrow path near the edge of camp where two men are crouched by a sack, whispering. One of them looks up and sees you. Want a date? You shrug, sure. He tosses you one. It's warm from his palm, slightly sticky, the flesh darker than night. You bite in, and the softness melts across your tongue like brown sugar and memory. Dates are power snacks in the Mali Empire, not just for nutrition, but for, let's say, encouraging cooperation. They're bribes, offerings, symbols of wealth, and sometimes they're just snacks. The men eye you, then each other. "You on night duty?" one asks. You hesitate. If you say yes, you'll end up guarding camels. If you say no, you risk looking lazy. So you go with the most diplomatic response possible. Depends who's asking. They nod. They respect vague answers. One of them leans in and mutters, "We're trying to skip out on guard duty tonight. Already traded 2 bundles of incense for that fool Demba to take our shift." "Demba, you say? Mid-chew? Wasn't he asleep before sunset?" "Exactly." You smile. The game is as old as the Empire. Trade a date, gain a favor, share a fruit, dodge responsibility, or at least delay it until someone else is tired enough not to care. Historians still argue whether dates were more common as edible goods or diplomatic tokens. Some texts suggest entire negotiations were sweetened by a shared date bowl. Others argue they were just popular because they kept well in the heat and didn't offend picky palates. You finish yours, wiping your hands on your robe. "You need a few more," one of the men asks, offering the sack. You nod and take 2 more, one for later. One to bribe the donkey into not sitting down mid-travel tomorrow. It has worked before. Probably coincidence. You choose to believe it was tactical brilliance. As you turn to leave, you nearly trip over a mat. A girl, maybe 13, pops her head up and scowls at you like you just kicked a sacred drum. "Watch it," she mutters, then returns to her blanket. A date pit rolls across the dirt near her elbow. She's been snacking too. You settle a short distance away and sink onto your mat, chewing the second date slowly. It's even better than the first. Richer, as if it's soaked in moonlight before you bit it. Or maybe you're just sleepy. There's a commotion by the camels, a soft grunt, followed by a shouted name and the unmistakable noise of someone falling into hay. You do not move. You do not offer help. You pull your blanket tighter and pretend to be a rock. Across from you, a griot clears his throat. His voice isn't loud, but it carries low and steady. He's telling a story about the old days, when dates were considered enchanted, capable of revealing lies. Supposedly, if someone held a date in their mouth while lying, it would turn bitter. You've never tested this. You chew faster just in case. A woman nearby adds her own version if you eat 3 dates before a journey. You'll be protected from bandits. A man interrupts. He says it's 5 dates, and they must be wrapped in red cloth. A third person says none of this matters, because bandits like dates too. You lie back, letting the arguments wash over you like bedtime waves. These aren't fights, they're tradition, retold under stars and sustained by sugar. Your final date is gone now, and the pit rolls from your fingers into the sand. You're full, warm, and just drowsy enough that the caravan's troubles feel like tomorrow's problem. Your last thought before sleep takes you. You're definitely bribing that donkey again tomorrow. The morning sun hasn't fully committed, yet it's just peeking over the horizon like someone testing bathwater with a toe. But already, the camp is stirring. You, however, are not. You're lying flat on your back, trying to convince yourself that maybe, just maybe, no one will notice if you stay horizontal for 15 more minutes. Then you hear the unmistakable sound of fish slapping against a pan, and all hope vanishes. Smoked catfish. It's not fancy, it's not even particularly moist, but it is food, and it's calling to you like a one-stringed harp in the quiet of dawn. You drag yourself upright, your limbs stiff and soul heavier than your satchel. Around the campfire, someone's flipping thin strips of fish over coals, the smell drifting through the air like an accidental blessing. You shuffle over, hoping for a bite before the greedy hands of teenage traders grab everything in reach. The cook, a thin woman with a permanent frown and arms like braided rope eyes, you skeptically. "You helping with the wood today?" "I will, eventually." She grunts, then tosses you a slice of fish the size of your palm. You catch it with a reverence usually reserved for sacred scrolls. You bite in. It's tough, chewy, a little salty, and smoky in the way that makes you wonder if the cook used actual wood or just lit someone's sandal on fire. But it's good deeply, wonderfully good, like the kind of breakfast that forgives your regrets from the night before. As you chew, a griot plops down beside you. He's got that look in his eye, half performance, half mischief. His cloak is frayed, his fingers ink-stained, and he's already speaking before you realize what's happening. Want to hear about the fish that ate a warrior's shadow? You nod because saying no to a griot is like swatting away history itself. He launches into the tale, weaving fish, magic, betrayal, and an oddly specific subplot about a broken flute. You try to follow the story, but your focus wavers. The fish is taking all your attention. It's lodged between your teeth like it's fighting for survival even after death. The griot pauses mid-story, noticing your expression. Too chewy. You nod. He shrugs. That's how you know it's real. Historians still argue whether the widespread use of smoked catfish in Mali was due to taste or storage. Some say it was beloved for its strong flavor and chewy texture like edible leather. Others believe it was just practical dried fish, lasts longer than fresh, and the smell deters camel thieves. You're not sure if that last part is accurate, but it feels true. The griot continues. Now he's describing a crocodile with a golden jaw who bartered fish for secrets. You're deeply confused, but you nod thoughtfully. It's a performance, after all, not a lecture. More people gather. Someone starts handing out scraps of cassava. Someone else tries to trade their fish for a banana that looks like it gave up halfway through ripening. No one accepts. Banana shame is a powerful force. You're halfway through your second slice when the cook reappears and announces that the firewood hasn't been chopped. She stares directly at you, still going to help, eventually. You smile weakly, holding up your fish like a hall pass. Mid-bite, very vulnerable. She doesn't blink. You sigh and rise, fish still in hand, and head toward the pile of firewood. A boy already there hands you a hatchet with the weariness of someone who's seen too much before breakfast. As you chop, the griot shifts his performance closer. He perches on a log and continues his story, now detailing how the warrior's shadow reattached itself by hiding inside a fish's stomach. You nod again. The story has taken on layers you're not equipped to peel, but it makes the work easier. The fish is now gone, just a memory lodged in your molars, and your hands are dusty with bark and effort. You sit back, panting slightly, and glance over at your donkey, who has been staring at you the entire time. Judging? Silently. Rudely. Someone brings a jug of watered tamarind and passes it around. You take a sip. The tartness slices through the lingering fish taste, leaving your mouth puckered and your spirit vaguely refreshed. The cook walks by again and tosses you a final piece. Last one. You earn it this time. You don't argue. You sit, legs outstretched, the griot still spinning his tail beside you. The camp slowly shifting into movement. Camels snort, packs are buckled, and somewhere a group of children start singing a song about a fish who became a king. It's probably based on something the griot made up 10 minutes ago. But it's catchy. You hum along as the last bit of catfish vanishes from your hand, smoky and stubborn between your teeth. The camp is on the move again, trudging along a stretch of dry earth cracked into a patchwork of forgotten riverbeds. Your sandals slap against the hard-packed soil with each step, and the sun presses down like a grumpy ancestor. You squint ahead, eyes searching for any excuse to stop, even if it's just to retie your sandal for the 4th time this morning. You don't have to wait long. Up ahead, a small village bursts into view, not grand, not ornate, just a cheerful tangle of straw roofs and red clay walls, with children darting between huts like gossip in motion. There's music, too, if you can call it that. rhythmic drumming interrupted every so often by what sounds like a goat stepping on a flute. A festival, or at least something that wants to be one. You're drawn in by the smell of first-fried oil, roasted grain, and something unmistakably amphibian. Yes, today's snack adventure comes with legs, frog legs, to be exact. You weave your way toward a fire pit where a woman in a brightly dyed wrap is fanning sizzling frog legs in an open pan. They pop and hiss in the oil like they're telling secrets. She catches your eye, nods, and wordlessly hands you one skewered on a stick. No judgment, no price. You hesitate. It's crispy, browned, a little too leggy, but you're committed now. You bite. It's surprisingly good like chicken. If chicken had less ambition and lived near rice paddies, crispy on the outside, tender in the middle, and seasoned with something sharp, maybe pepper or ground baobab bark. You chew thoughtfully while watching a kid next to you chase another with a live frog, clearly planning to upgrade the menu without permission. Historians still argue whether frog legs were a regional staple or just a festival indulgence. Some claim they were considered delicacies, fried on special occasions. Others suggest people just looked around, saw frogs, and got curious. Either way, the frying method seems to have survived generations of picky eaters. Just as you're about to go for a second skewer, a small frog escapes from someone's basket and makes a mad dash across the path. It leaps onto the cooking stone, squeaks, yes, squeaks, and then springs away with supernatural energy, straight into your lap. You yelp. The crowd laughs. The woman grabs the pan in one hand and the frog in the other like a magician at dinner theater. "Too fresh for you," she says, winking. You hand the frog back with as much dignity as you can muster, which isn't much considering you're holding half a leg in your other hand. She tosses the frog into a clay pot, hopefully not the cooking pot. Probably not. You hope. Nearby, a few musicians begin tapping a faster beat. Children clap along, dancing in a lopsided circle while pretending to eat invisible frog legs. One of them tosses a pretend leg at you. You mime catching it with exaggerated flair. And the kids cheer like you've just performed a feat of culinary heroism. Then someone drops an actual skewer in the dirt. A brief moment of silence. A girl picks it up, blows on it twice, and eats it anyway. You respect her deeply. The woman offers you another skewer. You accept. This one is seasoned with something redder, spicier. A fire ant's whisper of heat blooms in your mouth, and your ears tingle. Definitely pepper, possibly spite. You pace yourself this time. The meat is leaner than goat, less greasy than fish, and much less argumentative than camel. Honestly, you'd consider frog a regular snack if it weren't for the whole legs staring back at you situation. A traveler sitting beside you mutters, "First time I tried one, I thought it was cursed chicken." You nod. It's not an unreasonable assessment. Another adds, "If you eat frog on a full moon, you'll dream of rain." Or get warts. Someone else counters. The debate swirls, blending myth and meal until no one remembers what started it. Just another day in the empire where stories cook alongside the food. And every bite could spark an argument or an omen. A boy wanders by with a tray of tamarind juice. You trade him the last frog leg for a gourdful. Fair deal. The juice is thick and sour, perfect for chasing away the spicy echo now warming your chest. The sun dips slightly, casting long shadows through the village square. The drumming slows. People stretch, laugh, pat their bellies. One man claims he caught the jumping frog with his bare hands. He definitely did not. You lean back against a low wall, your belly full of amphibian pride, your mouth still tingling from the spices. The village begins to quiet, like a song winding down. You exhale slowly and watch smoke curl into the sky. Somewhere, a frog croaks defiantly. You smile. There's something strangely comforting about a meal that hops before it's fried. The path out of the village winds through low shrubs and flat, dry plains, where even the breeze seems to need a nap. You're walking slower now, partly because the frog legs are staging a quiet protest in your stomach, and partly because the sun has gone full tyrant overhead. You reach a resting point near an old stone well. There's shade glorious, patchy shade thanks to a knotted tree that's grown sideways as if trying to escape the sun too. You drop your pack and stretch, already eyeing the goats grazing nearby with the weariness of someone who's had exactly one too many livestock-related incidents. That's when a weathered herder ambles over, swinging a gourd in one hand and cradling a cloth-wrapped bundle in the other. He looks at you, looks at the goats, then opens the cloth to reveal a modest lump of soft, sour-smelling white cheese. Goat cheese again, but this time it's paired with camel milk. You brace yourself. Camel milk is not for the faint of heart. It's frothy, warm, and faintly musky, like someone blended yogurt and ambition. The herder offers you the gourd. You sip. It hits the tongue like thick water mixed with a dare. You blink, nod, and try to look grateful. He beams at you, apparently pleased, and slices off a hunk of the cheese. You tear off a bit and nibble. It's smoother than yesterday's brick version, more spreadable, like it's been aged under someone's bedroll. As you chew, a few traders sit nearby and immediately begin a heated debate over whose herd produces the purer milk. One claims his camels eat only sacred thornbush. Another insists his animals drink rainwater filtered through prayer cloth. A third, who is clearly just here for the argument, says the best milk comes from a camel that was blessed by a river priest and sneezed 3 times during an eclipse. You consider interrupting with a polite suggestion that maybe the goat made the cheese, but you wisely choose to remain silent. These kinds of conversations tend to escalate into stick duels or long-winded stories that involve ancestral camels and mystical udders. Historians still argue whether camel milk held true cultural reverence or was just the most logical beverage available in certain regions. Some records describe it as medicine, others as divine nourishment, and at least one source claims it can make a man grow wiser, if not taller. You sip again. No change yet. Your donkey wanders closer, sniffing at your gourd with disdain. You offer it a taste. It refuses, then glares at you as if insulted by the suggestion. Fine. More for you. A group of children plays nearby, bouncing a worn leather ball made from stitched-up goat's stomach. One kid trips, rolls dramatically, then immediately begins telling everyone he was pushed by a ghost. A woman swats at him with a reed fan, unamused. You move to a flatter patch of ground and sit back, letting the warmth of the cheese settle into your stomach like a stubborn houseguest. It's heavy, but comforting. Camel milk sloshes lazily in your gourd as you swirl it, pretending to understand the delicate bouquet of fermented notes. One of the traders pulls out a pouch of roasted chickpeas and offers them around. You take a handful salty, crunchy, and far less controversial than milk politics. You trade a few for another sliver of cheese. Someone else offers dried dates in return, but they're the hard kind that fight back. You decline. Your jaw has limits. The wind picks up slightly, carrying with it the faint smell of animals, sand, and someone's over-perfumed armpit. You adjust your headscarf, lie back, and let the noises blur together. The camel milk continues to linger on your tongue. You wonder if it's an acquired taste, or if the camels just enjoy watching you struggle. As the sun begins its slow descent, the herder packs up his cheese with all the reverence of a man tucking in a child. He ties the cloth bundle carefully, slings it under his arm, and shuffles away, humming a tune that might be a lullaby or just his personal anti-goat anthem. You sit up, brush sand off your elbows, and rise with a groan. The rest of the caravan is getting ready to move again, repacking, retying, re-swearing at their beasts of burden. You sling your bag over your shoulder and rejoin them. Stomach full of dairy, brain full of arguments you didn't understand, and hands that still faintly smell like cheese. You glance at your donkey. It snorts. "Don't judge me," you mutter. "You weren't brave enough to try it." It snorts again, louder this time. You squint at it. "I swear, if you ever make cheese, I'm feeding it to everyone who doubted me." And with that, you both plod onward through sun, through dust, through endless debates about the nobility of milk toward the next village, the next bite, and whatever strange delicacy the Mali Empire decides to throw at your palate next. The sun dips low, casting golden shadows that stretch like lazy cats across the dirt path. You're walking slower again, not from fatigue, but because the next village over is known for its tam-tam cakes, and frankly, you want to arrive hungry. You reach the village just as twilight settles in, the air cooler now, almost kind. Children dart between cooking fires, and someone's pounding millet in a rhythm that matches your steps. The smell hits you first spicy, toasted grain with a hint of chili and maybe something sweet underneath. Your feet pick up speed. A stall near the center square is already surrounded. A woman stands behind it, her hands dusted with flour and spice, flipping little cakes off a flat iron sheet and into a woven basket. They sizzle and puff, round and golden brown, like tiny pillows stuffed with ambition and regret. Tam-tam cakes, small, round, and dangerously addictive. You squeeze through the crowd with the grace of a determined mosquito and make eye contact with the vendor. She lifts a single eyebrow. "First time." You nod. She hands you one without a word. You bite in. It's crunchy on the outside, warm and chewy inside, with bursts of chili, salt, and something floral, maybe crushed hibiscus, maybe magic. It lights up your mouth in waves, not too hot, just enough to make your tongue sit up straighter. You're about to thank her when a sharp tug on your tunic nearly topples you into the tam-tam basket. A child couldn't be older than 7 stares up at you with wild eyes and a half-eaten cake in hand. "I saw a genie in the well," she declares, then runs off before you can ask for details. You glance at the vendor. She shrugs. She says that every week. Historians still argue whether tam-tam cakes were strictly village food or whether they found their way into royal kitchens. Some griots claim Emperor Mansa Musa himself once refused dinner just to gorge on these tiny spice bombs. Others suggest he merely funded a tam-tam cart out of pity for a chef with no sense of portion control. Regardless, these little things pack more flavor than most feasts. Another cake lands in your hand. You didn't even ask. You eat it anyway. A man nearby is pretending not to eavesdrop while clearly eavesdropping. He finally breaks. "You know," he says, "the secret ingredient is ground termite." You pause mid-chew. The vendor scowls. "It is not." He shrugs. "It could be." You keep chewing. "If it is, well, that's one talented termite." A group of kids nearby is playing a tam-tam tossing game, flinging stale cakes like skipping stones toward a row of overturned clay pots. One kid scores a perfect shot. Another accuses her of using invisible wind spirits. Tears are shed. Pride is wounded. A third child steps in to mediate and ends up eating the winning cake. You take your third tam-tam with exaggerated reverence, biting slowly, trying to analyze the flavor like a noble deciding which chef to promote. There's a hint of something smoky. Could be paprika. Could be the pan hasn't been washed since the last rainy season. Either way, it works. The vendor gives you a cloth packet, 3 cakes for the road. You offer a few cowrie shells in return. She doesn't count them. "If you survive the walk, come back tomorrow," she says, already flipping new cakes for the next customer. You tuck the packet into your bag and stroll toward the edge of the village where the caravan is regrouping. Your donkey is already there, chewing something unidentifiable and refusing to acknowledge your existence. You've stopped taking it personally. You sit under a tree and unwrap one of the cakes, just to check on it. The smell is still strong, the warmth clinging to the dough. You tear off a piece, and before you can eat it, a small hand snatches it. The genie girl. She stares at you, chewing rapidly. He said your donkey will be emperor one day. You raise an eyebrow. The genie said that? She nods. He had earrings. With that, she runs off again, chasing a friend with a ladle and a string of tam-tam crumbs trailing behind her. You shake your head, pop the remaining bit of cake into your mouth, and lean back against the tree. The stars begin to prick the sky, and the moon rises like a peeled pearl above the thatched roofs. Tam-tam cakes, it turns out, are perfect for the road, perfect for confusing prophecies, and perfect for forgetting that you haven't had a vegetable in 3 days. You sigh happily, cheeks warm from spice and laughter. Tomorrow may bring millet and regret, but tonight you've got cakes and a donkey with royal ambitions. You wake up to arguing. Not the dignified, scholarly kind, the loud, deeply personal kind that can only happen between family members who know exactly how to hurt each other with nothing but tone and boiled roots. You're still half wrapped in your blanket, one sandal missing, as you peek over the fire pit and spot the source two cousins, bickering over whose job it was to soak the yams overnight. A pot of half-cooked tubers bubbles moodily between them, as if the stew itself is offended. You sit up, slowly, hoping they won't notice you. No such luck. Hey, one cousin says, you're neutral? Tell him he's the lazy one? I was asleep, you say helpfully, which is apparently not the right answer. The argument continues. Something about ancestral yam recipes, someone misplacing a ladle, and a great-grandmother's ghost who apparently sides with neither of them because she hated cooking anyway. You quietly edge closer to the pot. The roots inside are starchy, soft at the edges, but still holding their shape. Someone's added red pepper flakes and chopped moringa, which makes the broth smell hearty and slightly aggressive. You grab a gourd bowl, ladle in a scoop, and retreat like a seasoned battlefield veteran. The first bite is hot temperature-wise and spice-wise. It sticks to the roof of your mouth and refuses to leave. But it's good, earthy, comforting, like the culinary equivalent of being scolded by an elder who still loves you. As you eat, a woman with no relation to the feud sits down beside you. She offers a boiled plantain, unwrapped from a banana leaf and steaming. You take it, grateful. Every morning, she mutters, gesturing at the quarreling cousins, like roosters with drama. You nod, mouth full of root. Historians still argue whether yams and plantains were the everyday food of the Mali elite or merely the staple of commoners. Most agree that no matter your rank, you ate them, whether mashed, boiled, roasted, or fried into chip-like slivers that crack your teeth in the best way. The woman beside you hands you another chunk of plantain. They're fighting over the family burial mound again, you know. You raise an eyebrow. Because of yams? No, she says, rolling her eyes, because one of them moved the marker rock to build a goat pen. You consider this. The goat pen is quite nice. A group of children runs past, carrying carved sticks like swords and yelling something about yam pirates. One trips and flings his stick into the stew pot. No one reacts. The cousins are too busy reenacting the argument through increasingly dramatic gestures involving imaginary ancestors and a suspiciously detailed insult about someone's toe hygiene. You finish your bowl, grateful for the plain but solid flavors. There's something soothing about food that doesn't need to impress you. It just exists warm, filling, slightly lumpy. A man walks by and offers you a bundle of pickled root slices. They're tart and rubbery, but you chew a few politely. They bite back in a way that makes your eyes water, and your soul question its choices. He laughs, good for settling arguments. You're not sure if he means eating them or throwing them. The donkey appears again, entirely unbothered, and begins nudging your bag. You reach in, pull out one of the tam-tam cakes from last night, and offer it. It refuses. You sigh. Too fancy for boiled roots now, are we? The donkey continues chewing on your blanket instead. Back at the pot, one cousin announces that he will be writing to the village chief about this. The other threatens to send a dream message to their grandmother's ghost. A third person, possibly a bystander, just mutters, "Again," and keeps eating. You grab a second bowl of yam and settle in to enjoy the show. The sun climbs higher, warming the edges of your robe, and the steam from the pot rises in thick, fragrant waves. Another traveler plops down next to you. "Whose side are you on?" he whispers. "I'm on the side of boiled roots," you whisper back, spooning in another mouthful. He grins, "Best side." You eat in silence, listening to the chorus of voices, the bubbling stew, and the faint metallic clatter of someone pretending to do dishes to avoid taking sides. It's chaos, but it's familiar chaos. Comforting, even. And as you scoop up the last piece of soft, peppery tuber, you think to yourself if love had a flavor, it would probably taste like root stew cooked in the middle of a family feud. You've only just escaped the yam drama when you hear it a faint warble, a bit off-key, drifting across the open square like a goat trying to sing. You follow the sound partly out of curiosity, partly because your last boiled root is sitting heavily in your belly, and movement seems wise. The noise leads you to the edge of a grove where a man in tattered scholar's robes is leaning against a fig tree, clutching a clay jug and reciting something that might once have been poetry. "You've found the village scribe." Or, more accurately, the village's very drunk, very heartbroken scribe. He's reciting lines with the sincerity of someone who's either casting a spell or reliving a personal tragedy. "Oh, moon, you traitor, why did you light her path away from me?" He sobs into his palm. You take a cautious seat nearby, mostly because he has a second jug, and curiosity is your only real personality trait at the moment. He notices you and perks up. "Ah, a fellow patron of the arts." You nod politely. He hands you a cup of palm wine. You sip. It's fermented sap, sharp and slightly sweet, with the distinct aftertaste of tree bark and poor decisions. You've had worse. You've also had cleaner cups. This one tastes like it hasn't been washed since the empire's founding. He slumps beside you, now muttering about a noblewoman who rejected his love poem and then married someone with a better cow. You nod again. That tracks. Historians still argue whether scribes in the Mali Empire were romantics by trade or just underpaid multitaskers with too much ink and not enough companionship. This one seems to think he's both. "I once wrote a poem so beautiful," he says, "a snake stopped hissing just to listen." You smile. Did the woman like it? "She threw it in a well," he says, "but the snake stayed." You take another sip. Palm wine has a way of loosening the soul. It tastes like stories that sound better after dark. The scribe's next tale is about a mythical library where scrolls whisper their contents to you unless you're unworthy, in which case the ink rearranges itself into insults. You ask if he's ever been there. "Once," he says solemnly, "the scroll called me a goat." You finish your cup and accept a second. Around you, the grove is quiet except for his slurred verse and the low hum of insects. The sun filters through the fig leaves in dappled patterns, softening the edges of everything, even the absurdity of his heartbreak. A woman walks past, hears a bit of the poem, and sighs audibly, still on about the cow lady. "She stole my metaphor," he mutters. You stay a little longer, chewing on roasted groundnuts he offers from a pouch that smells faintly of wet parchment. The nuts are warm, earthy, and blessedly normal, something to anchor you amid the swirl of sap and sonnets. Eventually, He pulls a folded scrap from his robes. Want to hear my latest masterpiece? You nod. He unfolds it with ceremony, clears his throat, and begins. Your eyes are twin markets, one for grain, one for disappointment. You blink. That's vivid. He beams. Do you think it's too subtle? You shake your head. No, the disappointment really comes through. He scribbles something on the paper, maybe a revision, maybe a grocery list, then starts singing again. A verse about betrayal involving figs and ox carts. You lean back against the tree and let the sound wash over you. It's awful, but in the charming way bad poetry becomes excellent storytelling. One of the children from earlier sneaks up, steals a peanut, and giggles. The scribe doesn't notice. He's already reciting a new poem, this one comparing heartbreak to overripe plantains. You're not sure how long you stay there, nursing the last of the wine, eating whatever snacks he passes you, half listening, half dreaming. The fig tree's shade grows deeper, and the scribe's voice softer. By the time you leave, your head is light, your pockets smell like peanut shells, and you've been told 3 poems, 2 prophecies, and a warning never to trust a woman who wears indigo on Wednesdays. You return to camp with the vague sense that you've been culturally enriched, or, at the very least, mildly pickled. The world spins just slightly as you lie back on your mat, and the donkey sniffs your breath with judgment. Go write your own poem, you mutter. And just like that, you drift off with wine on your tongue and terrible rhymes in your ears. The next morning, your head feels like it's been politely but firmly sat on by a goat. You groan, sit up slowly, and remember palm wine, terrible poetry, the fig tree. You check your satchel and find a crumpled piece of paper wedged in with your remaining snacks. Scrawled across it in wild slanted handwriting, your love is like unsalted porridge, a masterpiece, no doubt. Your stomach rumbles a gentle reminder that fermented beverages do not count as breakfast. You scan the edge of the caravan where vendors have begun setting up baskets of roasted insects, grilled roots, and mystery stews. But what catches your eye today is a little stand with thin skewers lined up like fence posts, each holding a row of shiny, blackened crickets. You wander over, curious. The vendor, a man with more earrings than teeth, sees you eyeing the display. Crunchy or extra crunchy, he asks. You're not sure there's a good answer, but you choose regular crunchy and hand over a shell bead. He grins and flips a skewer into your hand. You examine it. The crickets are roasted, their little legs curled inward, wings charred crisp. You take a tentative bite. The crunch is immediate, loud enough to make a goat glance over. The taste is nutty, smoky, and oddly satisfying, sort of like eating a campfire-seasoned sunflower seed, if sunflower seeds stared at you first. You chew, cautiously optimistic. The vendor nods approvingly and whispers, "Lucky batch. These ones were fed only on mango leaves." You don't know if that makes a difference, but you appreciate the attention to diet. As you crunch, a hunched woman with cloudy eyes wanders up and begins speaking not to you directly, but in your direction. She's wearing layers of patched cloth, each in a different shade of memory. Her walking stick taps the ground like punctuation. 3 days from now, she says, you'll step in something warm. It will not be what you expect. You freeze mid-bite. She tilts her head. Your camel's name is Yolof. Yes. You don't own a camel, or a donkey named Jollof, or any animal, really, except the rude one currently attempting to untie your pack with its teeth. She nods, satisfied. Good. That means the stars are in reverse. The vendor hands her a cricket skewer. She takes it, chews slowly, then continues. The one you trust most will lose their sandal in the river. You glance around. Most of the people near you are strangers. The one you trust most might be your sleeping mat, or the rice cake in your bag. She stops suddenly. You will eat a green thing and regret it. Then she wanders off. Historians still argue whether village oracles in Mali were true seers or simply excellent observers with dramatic timing. Either way, you're now wary of anything green and mildly afraid of warm surprises. You finish your skewer. The final cricket crunches between your teeth like someone snapping a dry twig in a library. You kind of love it. Nearby, a boy starts juggling empty gourd bowls. He's not good at it, but he's loud, which is apparently all that matters. A small crowd gathers. Someone bets a cowrie he'll drop one. He does, twice. The woman returns briefly to mutter something about wings in your teeth before disappearing again. You check your reflection in a cracked brass bowl. Yep, one tiny wing, right on your front tooth. You clean up, grab a second skewer because now you're hooked, and sit beneath a tree. A young girl asks if she can have one of your crickets. You hand her a whole skewer. She grins, bites, and nods sagely. Tastes like victory. You don't know what battle she fought this morning, but she's clearly won. A passing traveler with a white turban and a parrot on his shoulder pauses to look at your snack. Never trusted crickets, he says. Had one whisper my secrets to a rooster once. You stare at him. I was very tired, he adds. He wanders off. The parrot blinks at you before repeating, "Rooster liar." You decide maybe it's time to stand up. Your belly's full of crispy wings and strange omens. Your mouth tastes like roasted twiggy spice, and your pockets are mysteriously lighter than when you started. You suspect the donkey. You glance at the horizon. Another village ahead. More roads. Maybe fewer crickets. Maybe not. You pat your bag, now carefully avoiding all green things inside. Whatever the next snack is, you're ready probably. The road ahead is cracked and sun-bleached, the kind of path that makes your knees start negotiating with your feet about retirement plans. Each step kicks up a little dust, which the wind dutifully throws back in your face like it has something personal against your pores. The caravan is moving slow today, mostly because one of the carts broke a wheel, and partly because someone, possibly you, accidentally fed a donkey too many fermented dates. The donkey is now lying in the shade, smiling at a tree. You salute its choices. Midday nears, and the air turns into a hot curtain. The sun is no longer rising. It's looming. Everyone in the caravan begins searching for shade or, failing that, the illusion of it. You find a spot behind a boulder, shared by a few disgruntled goats and one sleepy trader who may or may not be napping with his eyes open. You drop your pack, fan yourself with a palm scrap, and realize with mild horror that it's time to eat again. The options today are bleak jerky, or more jerky, desert jerky. To be specific, strips of dried meat as stiff as a scholar's collar and twice as judgmental. You pull a piece from your satchel. It's goat. Probably. Could be antelope. Might be disappointment. You bite. It fights back. Chewing takes effort, like arguing with a wall that insists it's a door. The salt immediately hits your tongue like it's collecting rent. You squint at the sky, wondering if the sun is intensifying just to mess with you. Wouldn't be the first time. A gust of wind stirs the dust, and someone yells, "Storm!" You look up and see it a wall of sand crawling toward the horizon like an angry carpet. People begin scrambling, tying cloth over mouths, throwing blankets over baskets. The goats flee in dramatic, zigzagging terror. Your donkey sighs and lies down, clearly done with all this. You spit out a tough piece of jerky and dive behind the boulder. Sandstorms in the Sahel aren't like storybook weather. They don't gently arrive with a polite warning. They hit you with full-body exfoliation, existential dread, and a mouthful of grit. You huddle, cloth wrapped tight around your face, chewing slowly on the salt meat because, well, what else are you going to do? Historians still argue whether desert jerky was prized for its portability or just tolerated because everything else spoiled faster. Some claim it was a delicacy, soaked in spice and sung to during preparation. Others say it was the culinary equivalent of punishment for forgetting your mother's name. The storm howls for nearly an hour, tossing sand into every fold of your clothing and possibly into your soul. When it finally dies down, the world is quiet, blanketed in a fine layer of golden dust. You emerge, blinking, coated in grit. Your jerky is still in your hand, somehow drier than before. A child nearby coughs and pulls a beetle out of her hood. She examines it, shrugs, and pockets it, resourceful. You dust yourself off, find your donkey who has rolled onto its other side, completely unbothered, and check the pack. The tam-tam cake survived. Miracles exist. Someone shouts that the cartwheel's been repaired. The caravan groans back into motion, sand still clinging to faces, satchels, and the corners of your teeth. You gnaw on another bite of jerky, this one tougher than leather and saltier than gossip. But oddly enough, it grounds you. There's something deeply honest about a food that doesn't try to charm you. Jerky doesn't flirt. It just exists. It says, if you're still hungry, you'll eat me. You chew. You endure. You move forward. And in the wake of a storm, with your tongue rough from salt and your ears still echoing with wind, it tastes like survival. The sky is quieter now, as if the sandstorm wrung every sound from the world and left the rest of the day in hush mode. The air is cooler, not cool, just less murderous, and the caravan's pace slows to a lazy shuffle. Your legs ache, your lips are dry. Your donkey is still ignoring you. You're halfway through, wondering whether chewing a pebble would be more satisfying than another strip of jerky when you hear it the clink of wooden spoons against clay bowls, the low bubbling of a large pot, and the soft murmur of voices trying not to sound suspicious. You drift closer, following the smell of sorghum porridge wafting from a merchant's tent pitched just off the path. It's thick, dark, and earthy steam curling out of the pot like an invitation. You sit nearby, close enough to be noticed, but not close enough to get kicked out for looking hungry. Inside the tent, two nobles sit cross-legged, whispering between mouthfuls. You recognize one sort of, he once overpaid you for a very underwhelming map. The other wears a ring the size of a walnut, and a look that says, I'm planning something even when he's just blinking. Their bowls are full, their voices low, and their bodyguards just far enough away that eavesdropping seems like a reasonable life choice. You pretend to adjust your sandal while listening. The Emir of Dia is gathering allies. One says, can't happen before the new moon. Musa's cousin still thinks he's next in line. You pause mid-fake sandal inspection. Political whispers over porridge. Classic. A girl walks by offering small gourds of that very porridge dark brown, sticky and spiked with fermented tamarind, by the smell of it. You hand her 2 cowries and receive your portion with the reverence of someone who just survived salt and wind and goat-related disappointment. The first bite is smooth, almost sweet. Then comes the sharp tamarind bite and a hint of smoke. It's hearty, comforting, and, like all good porridge, dense enough to break a spoon if you're too enthusiastic. As you chew, the nobles continue murmuring, something about moving pieces and shifting loyalties. You stop paying attention halfway through the third bite, mostly because your porridge is getting thicker as it cools, and you're having to work harder to keep up. A trader sitting near you leans over and mutters, they're talking about a coup. You raise an eyebrow. Well, he says, maybe, or lunch plans. Their whisper voice is always the same. Historians still argue whether food stalls were truly neutral ground for politics in the Mali Empire. Some suggest that porridge pots were safer than palace walls when it came to exchanging secrets. Others claim that sharing a bowl was code for alliance or betrayal. It depended, apparently, on the topping. You finish your porridge and wipe your mouth with the edge of your sleeve. Your stomach is full. Your ears are full. Your donkey is now chewing on someone else's mat. That's progress. A boy walks past with small clay bowls topped with powdered baobab and what might be crushed nuts. You wave him over. He offers a spoonful, sweet, tart, cool on the tongue. It cuts the heaviness of the porridge and leaves a zing on your lips. You thank him with a coin, and he thanks you by tossing you an extra pinch for the road. "Don't tell the nobles," he whispers. "They don't tip." You return to your mat and sprawl, listening to the murmurs, the clink of bowls, the rhythmic tapping of someone mixing more grain into the next pot. The air smells like spice and suspicion. A goat wanders by, sniffs your bowl, and leaves. Even it knows porridge means you're too full to chase it. The tent begins to empty. The nobles rise and exit, brushing imaginary dust from their robes. One looks directly at you for half a second. You smile. He does not. You lie back, letting the last of the heat from the bowl settle in your belly. The whispers fade. The pot is scraped clean. A child starts humming the tune of a well-known lullaby about a greedy trader who turned into a yam. You hum along, half asleep. Whatever plots were discussed, they've moved on now like the wind, like the porridge, like every rumor in this empire. But you'll remember the flavor. Thick, spiced, just sweet enough to make you wonder what's hidden underneath. By late afternoon, the sun has slipped behind a lazy veil of clouds, and the wind returns not as a storm, but as a long exhale, stirring up the dry grass and tugging at the corners of your robe like a curious spirit. You're back on the trail, belly full of tamarind porridge, and now deeply regretting your second helping. You slow your pace, not because you're tired you are, but because your insides are staging a quiet protest. You pat your stomach gently and whisper a promise to avoid mysterious stews for at least one full day. A lie, probably, but the gesture counts. Up ahead, a crowd has gathered around a narrow stall made of tied-together palm fronds. You catch the scent immediately, something sour, fruity, sharp. Tamarind? But not the mild version you had earlier. This is the raw stuff. Sticky pulp scraped fresh from its pod, glistening like a melted ruby in the sun. The vendor, a tall man with one eye and zero patience, slaps blobs of tamarind onto broad leaves, dusts them with salt and crushed red chili, and hands them out with a scowl. You accept one with appropriate reverence and a cautious nod. It sticks to your fingers like guilt. The first taste hits hard, sour enough to water your eyes, sweet enough to make you chase it. And then a slow burn from the chili creeps in like a whispered insult. You cough, recover, and go back for more. The pain is part of the pleasure. This snack doesn't just wake up your mouth, it shakes it by the shoulders. Behind you, someone is clearly having a spiritual experience with their own portion, groaning softly while fanning themselves with a sandal. Next to you, a merchant in a pale yellow robe mutters, "Should have known better. Bought from him last week and couldn't taste for 3 days." You offer him a sympathetic nod while continuing to suck the tamarind off your fingers. Yes, your mouth is on fire, but your soul feels refreshed. A child walks past with a different kind of tamarind preparation pulp, rolled into little balls and dusted with what looks like sugar and powdered ginger. You point, curious. He stops. "These are for love," he says, proud. You raise an eyebrow. He nods with the seriousness of someone quoting ancient prophecy. "If you eat one and think of someone, they'll sneeze." You take one. It's gentler than the chili kind, tart and gingery, but still bright with flavor. You think of your donkey, somewhere behind you. It sneezes. You try not to be impressed. You turn back to the stall just in time to hear a woman yell at the vendor. Apparently, she claims he shorted her by half a gram of pulp, and in return, he tells her she's lucky the chili didn't burn her ancestors. Several people gather to watch the escalation. A debate begins who overcharges more. tamarind vendors, or the ones who sell cloth with spirit-proof dye. Historians still argue whether tamarind in the Mali Empire was a regular condiment or an actual trade good. Some say it was used to preserve meat. Others claim it featured in rituals to ward off illness, jealousy, and overly forward marriage proposals. Judging by your mouth's current condition, it could probably do all three. You scrape the last of the pulp from the leaf, cheeks tingling, eyes watering, and feel utterly alive. It's not comfort food, it's wake up and fight your shadow food. Then you hear shouting from up the path. A merchant, red in the face, is stomping away from a small shrine near the riverbank, cursing about that cursed fruit vendor. As the story trickles in, it turns out he tried to shortchange a local healer, one who, according to popular rumor, once turned a man's tongue purple for a week. The vendor allegedly overcharged her for a handful of tamarind, and now his goats won't follow him anymore. You look down at the sticky smudge still on your leaf. You whisper a small apology just in case. As the sun continues its slow descent, the crowd around the tamarind stall disperses. Lips red, tongues scorched, hearts cleansed. You walk on, the wind licking at your cheeks and carrying the scent of spice and scandal. You pull out one last tamarind ball, roll it between your fingers, and think of someone. Not anyone in particular, just the vague memory of that woman who sold you a gourd of sour milk last week with a smile that felt like a trap. You eat the candy. Somewhere behind you, someone sneezes. You've now entered the portion of your journey where everyone is tired, but no one will admit it. The caravan is moving slower, the complaints are louder, and you've stepped in something that may have once been fruit, but is now best described as regret. Your stomach is still tingling from the tamarind, a lingering warmth that pulses with each step like a memory you can't shake. You reach for your water skin, only to discover it's half empty and somehow dustier on the inside than the outside. You rinse your mouth anyway. As the sun settles into its golden hour performance, the caravan rounds a bend and comes upon a rest stop with an enormous tamarind tree at its center. Beneath it sits an old woman no taller than your elbow, but with an aura that suggests she once fought off invading spirits with just a spoon. Her mat is spread with little parcels, wrapped leaves, tiny bundles of herbs, and a bowl of ginger candies. She's surrounded by a semicircle of listeners, mostly children, but a few adults pretending they just needed a place to sit. You, of course, find yourself edging closer, drawn by the scent of ginger and the promise of an entertaining lecture. She's midway through a monologue about how chewing raw ginger helps the soul stay upright during windstorms. It burns your demons out through your ears, she says. That's why mine are so big. You chuckle. She points at you. You laugh like someone who hasn't chewed enough ginger. Before you can protest, she tosses you a hard, sugar-coated chunk. You catch it, nod respectfully, and pop it into your mouth. Regret arrives quickly. It's sharp, fiery, even. Your eyes water. Your tongue tries to leave. The sweetness vanishes in 2 seconds, replaced by the sensation of chewing on lava that went to herbalist school. The old woman watches you suffer with great satisfaction. Good, she says. Now you'll dream clearly tonight. You nod, blinking, trying not to cough. She turns her attention back to the crowd and begins a tale about a traveler who swallowed a ginger root whole and gained the power to smell lies. According to her, he became a royal advisor, but was banished after sniffing the emperor's cousin during tax season. The kids gasp in the right places. The adults pretend they're not listening. Historians still argue whether ginger was used in oral medicine or oral punishment. Some believe it was prescribed to ward off colds, spirits, and idle thoughts. Others argue it was simply tasty and resilient in the heat, making it ideal for long travels and dramatic storytelling. You slowly chew your way through the candy, each bite sending a new wave of heat up your sinuses. You feel every breath. You feel your ancestors watching and shaking their heads. The old woman offers another candy to a crying toddler, who promptly stops crying, starts chewing, and begins crying again, but this time out of sheer spice confusion. A merchant nearby leans over and whispers, "Her ginger candies once made a noblewoman sing her diary aloud." You believe it. As the story ends, the old woman raises a hand and announces, "Tonight is a lucky night. The stars are shaped like a goat." Everyone looks up. The sky is still blue. "I don't mean now," she says. "Later, after you've eaten more ginger." You find yourself chuckling again. This time, she doesn't scold you. She simply hands you a small pouch, 5 more candies tied with a grass string. "You'll need these," she says, "for your next stomach mistake." You thank her, stashing the pouch carefully. If you had any sinuses left, they'd bow in gratitude. The crowd begins to disperse. A young man tries to trade a gourd of palm wine for the entire candy bowl. She refuses. The wine won't burn demons. It just makes them dance. You head back toward your donkey, who's somehow managed to find the one patch of shade and is refusing to share it. You hold up the ginger pouch. It sniffs, turns away. Typical. You pop one last candy in your mouth as the caravan begins moving again. The path ahead glowing orange with the last rays of sunlight. Your lips are burning. Your eyes are clearer than they've been in days, and your heart feels oddly lighter. Sometimes, wisdom comes wrapped in leaf and sugar. The sun is finally low enough that shadows stretch out like sleepy cats, and the caravan's mood improves by at least 20%. Conversations resume. Packs are adjusted with slightly less swearing. Even your donkey seems willing to acknowledge your existence, though, only by stealing a bite of your banana leaf-wrapped lunch when you weren't looking. That's today's meal stew. Specifically, spicy vegetable stew wrapped in banana leaves, sealed with a twist of vine, and tucked into a steaming basket you were lucky enough to hover near when it opened. You sit cross-legged in the sand, unwrap the leaf, and breathe in. The smell is bright chili, onion, and something nutty you can't quite place. Bits of yam, leafy greens, maybe some okra, all swimming in a slick of red oil. You tear off a piece of flatbread and scoop up the first bite. It's delicious, spicy enough to make your scalp sweat, hearty enough to feel like an apology from the universe. Unfortunately, you're enjoying it too visibly. A man in a brown tunic plops down next to you and sighs loudly. "Good stew," he asks, already reaching toward your leaf. You slide it slightly away. "Yes," you say. "Mine?" He sighs again, heavier this time, like your selfishness has personally insulted his ancestors. "I've been waiting 4 hours at the permit tent," he grumbles. You raise an eyebrow. "Permit?" He nods, chewing nothing. "Travel permit. Need one to move past the next checkpoint." You chew thoughtfully. You haven't even seen a permit tent. He continues, gesturing toward a cluster of travelers and scribes seated under a fraying awning nearby. A faded sign flaps lazily above them. Authorized documents and unauthorized attitudes. You squint. There's a line. A very long line. You sigh. It's the Mali Empire. Paperwork happens. You wrap up the rest of your stew for later, just in case this turns into a multi-hour ordeal, and trudge toward the awning. A scribe with inky fingers waves you forward without looking up. Name? You give it. Purpose of travel? Snacks, you say. He pauses, looks up. Trade snacks. You nod. Extensive trade. He scribbles something on a palm leaf. Do you have 3 witnesses and a signed token of community trust? You blink. Do you have stew? He squints at you. That a bribe? No, you say quickly. It's a conversation starter. He stares. You hand him a folded banana leaf. Inside 1 scoop of stew and half a square of flatbread. It glistens. He slowly unwraps it, sniffs, and takes a cautious bite. He chews, he sighs, he waves you through. Historians still argue whether the Mali Empire's document system was strictly administrative, or more of a social challenge designed to reward clever bribery. Some accounts describe a labyrinth of bureaucratic checkpoints. Others insist a single well-placed yam offering could accomplish what 10 scrolls never could. You walk away with your permit, a palm leaf smeared with ink, and confidence, and find a patch of shade to finish the rest of your stew. It's a little cold now, but still good. You feel victorious. A woman sits down beside you, pulling out her own banana-wrapped lunch. She peeks inside and groans, all yam again. You offer her a bite of yours. She takes it, eyes wide. What is this? You shrug, probably legal now. The two of you eat in comfortable silence. A camel behind you burps, no one flinches. You ask how long she waited for her permit. 3 hours, she says. The man ahead of me tried to pay with poetry. You nod, dangerous choice. She leans back on her elbows. Do you know the trick? To getting approved. She grins. To skipping the line. You raise an eyebrow. Carry an extra bowl and pretend to be delivering lunch to the scribe. She says, they wave you through. Works every time unless the scribe's fasting. Then you're cursed for a week. You file this away for future bureaucracy. As the caravan readies to move, you tuck the now empty leaf into a waste pile and pat your stomach. Today's snack didn't just feed you. It taught you how to navigate empire red tape with nothing but seasoning and audacity. You rejoin the caravan, still chewing the last soft bits of okra, wondering what the next checkpoint will require. A song, a dance, half a cricket. No matter. You've got stew in your system and a permit in your pocket. And in Mali, that's practically a passport to anywhere. You've crossed the checkpoint with your stew-soaked palm leaf permit and a quiet sense of triumph. Now the road stretches open and wide again, the red earth glowing under a sun that finally seems tired of being cruel. You feel a little lightheaded, not from heat this time, but from the realization that you haven't had anything crunchy in hours. Luckily, the sound of laughter and hooves directs you off the main path, where a loose gathering of caravan folk has formed a makeshift arena in the dust. At the center, a slow-motion camel race. And when you say race, you mean that in the loosest, most generous sense of the word, these camels are not racing, they are meandering, pausing to sniff the air, stopping mid-stride to contemplate eternity. One even lies down. The crowd, however, is deeply invested. Children cheer wildly. A man yells in 3 languages. Someone is holding a flute, playing a song with absolutely no relationship to the event. You lean in next to a woman roasting something on a flat stone. Who's winning, you ask? She snorts. Depends. Spiritually, that one. She points to the camel currently chewing on its own lead rope. Snacks, you ask? More to the point. She hands you a chunk of bark. You blink. This is a stick. Not just any stick, she says proudly. Crunchy bitter bark. Chew long enough and your teeth buzz. You accept it and take a bite. It's tough, dry, tastes like someone dared a tree to be spicy. You keep chewing. It grows on you like a splinter that tells stories. As the crowd erupts over a camel finally turning left, you gnaw on the bark and start to understand the appeal. It's more than food, it's distraction, oral tradition, a conversation between you and the plant world, mostly involving regret. Historians still argue whether bark chewing was medicinal, recreational, or just what happened when travelers ran out of actual food. Some sources claim it cured headaches. Others say it promoted conversation with your liver. A few just describe it as tree jerky. The woman next to you offers a second piece. This one darker, with little flakes of something herbal. You chew. It's slightly sweeter and immediately numbs the tip of your tongue. Oh yes, she says, pleased. That one opens your spirit ears. You nod solemnly, mostly because your mouth is now tingling. Nearby, two boys are betting cowries on which camel will sit down next. A girl swats one with a fan made of woven grass and declares herself referee. A man with a bowl of water tries to bribe one of the camels to speed up. The camel ignores him completely. You shift your bark to the other side of your mouth and lean against a tree stump. Someone passes around a jug of tamarind water. You take a sip. It cuts through the bark's bitterness and brings your mouth back from the edge of collapse. The race concludes sort of when one camel reaches a chalk line that may or may not be the actual finish. Someone throws a handful of ground nuts in celebration. A man immediately begins yelling that his cousin bribed the camel with a secret date. You applaud politely. The camel yawns. The crowd begins to disperse, but the bark vendor is doing brisk business now. People are chewing, spitting, swapping stories about which bark does what. One man claims he chewed a piece that let him smell thunder. No one questions it. You take a final bite, then carefully tuck the leftover bark into your pouch. Not because you want to finish it later, but because something about chewing bark while walking feels noble, or at least mildly intimidating. As the caravan prepares to move again, the air cooler now, you fall into step beside a quiet older traveler. She sees your bark and grins. "Rookie," she says, pulling out a piece the size of a walking stick. You raise your leaf-wrapped permission slip in salute. "Professional now." She nods. "Don't chew too fast. It'll talk back." You walk on, bark in cheek, tamarind on tongue, sand beneath your feet. This is the rhythm of the road in Mali walk. Chew, witness something ridiculous, and move on. Sometimes you're fed by a stranger. Sometimes by a tree. And sometimes the most entertaining thing you'll see all day is a camel that refuses to race. Evening casts long shadows across the trail, stretching the trees into giants and the caravan into a weary, snack-obsessed snake. The path ahead veers into mango country, a stretch of land dotted with low, tangled trees heavy with green and gold fruit. The kind of trees that look like they were grown by someone who wanted to make shade and breakfast at the same time. Your stomach perks up, so do your feet. A handful of travelers have broken off to gather fallen mangoes, each inspecting the fruit like it might explode. You join them, stepping carefully among half-rotted remains, swatting away the occasional fruit fly with your dignity. You find a good one, not perfect, but bruised in all the right ways. You hold it up to the sun like a prize, then promptly wipe it off on your sleeve and take a bite. Sweet. Ripe. A little too ripe. You chew slowly, thoughtfully, as the juice runs down your chin and onto your tunic, which has officially stopped pretending it's clean. You suck the mango down to the pit, spit a seed into the grass, and look around with mango-glazed serenity. Then a monkey steals your second mango. It appears out of nowhere, grabs the fruit with both hands, gives you a smug look, and darts into a tree. You stare after it, mango juice still on your lips. The man next to you snorts. That's what you get for eating in public. He's peeling his mango with a knife shaped like a question mark. "Lost 2 to monkeys today. One tried to trade me a rock." You nod. "What kind of rock?" "Not even a shiny one." You both eat in silence for a moment. Then he says, "You ever think mangoes taste better when they're stolen?" "I've never stolen one," you say. He gestures toward the monkey. Well, now you know what it tastes like on the other end. Historians still argue whether mangoes were cultivated in this region during the height of the Mali Empire or arrived via trade with the Sahel's eastern corridors. What's not debated? Their popularity. Mangoes were beloved, bartered, hoarded, and in some cases fought over. One chronicle even claims 2 cousins dueled over a particularly symmetrical specimen. A group of children starts a game near the trees, trying to knock mangoes loose with sticks and very ambitious stones. One succeeds. The mango lands with a squish. They eat it anyway. You find another fruit, this one firmer, sun-warmed, and less monkey-adjacent. You peel it carefully, sit down under a branch, and enjoy it without rush. There's a peace that comes with messy fruit, the kind of quiet that only mango drips and sunset can conjure. You think about your journey so far: salted cheese, crunchy bugs, sour tamarind, bark with opinions, and realize this mango may be the first thing you've eaten that didn't argue with you on the way down. Another traveler joins you, young, quiet, holding 3 mangoes in his shirt like stolen treasure. He offers you one. You raise an eyebrow. What do you want in return? Nothing, he says. You looked like someone who lost one. You nod, accept, and split the fruit in 2. He grins and sits, both of you chewing in contented silence. Farther ahead, the caravan begins to gather again. Camels are being loaded, pots scrubbed. Someone shouts about a missing ladle. You stretch your legs, toss your mango pit into the bush, and brush the juice off your chin with a leaf that's maybe clean. Maybe. Your donkey wanders over, having spent the entire mango moment somewhere out of sight. It sniffs your hands, realizes you have nothing left to offer, and walks off with the same attitude as the monkey. You watch it go, then look back at the trees. Dozens of mangoes still hang there green, gold, waiting to ripen or be stolen. You smile. This empire may trade in gold, salt, and secrets, but sometimes the best exchange is just a fruit, a grin, and a sticky hand. The next day begins with a surprise and a crunch, not necessarily in that order. You're still rubbing sleep from your eyes when a cheerful-looking stranger walks up and offers you a leaf-wrapped parcel. No words, just a smile and a gesture like, "Here, chew this and see what happens," because clearly that's normal. You unwrap it. It's a salad, or at least it looks like 1 green herbs, something that might be shaved root. And is that a locust leg? You squint. It twitches. Or maybe that's your imagination. "Crunchy surprise," the man says proudly. "Traditional breakfast from my village. Brings good luck and strong ankles." You glance at your donkey, who already has excellent ankles and no interest in bugs. You poke at the salad. It smells herbal, peppery, with a hint of vinegar and a much larger hint of winged things should not be in salads. The man is watching you. So are 3 nearby children and a camel that seems invested in the outcome. You sigh. You take a bite. Crunch. Crunch. It's not bad. The herbs are fresh, the dressing tangy, and the texture. Well, if you've ever wanted your food to stare back at you emotionally before collapsing between your molars, this is the dish for you. You chew slowly. The leg does not yield easily. You consider faking a sudden vision to excuse yourself, but your pride kicks in. "Delicious," you say, eyes watering slightly. The man beams. "Next time I'll add wings." You smile politely and wrap up the rest for later. Later will likely involve a strategically placed hole in the sand and some light denial. Historians still argue whether insects were everyday fare or seasonal protein snacks in the Mali Empire. Some oral histories suggest locusts were eaten roasted or fried during swarming seasons, turning plagues into lunch. Others claim they were preserved in honey and served during coming-of-age ceremonies, though it's unclear if that was celebration or hazing. You sit under a neem tree, trying to forget the aftertaste of whatever exoskeleton you just crunched. When the man offers you a drink made of fermented millet and crushed dates, it's thick, a little sour, and has a consistency somewhere between yogurt and commitment. You accept gratefully and rinse the last of the salad from your teeth. A nearby child asks, "Did the bug talk to you?" You blink? No. The child nods seriously. Then it wasn't fresh. You hand him the leftover bundle. He accepts it like a prize and skips off. You're not sure whether you've gifted a meal or a trap. The rest of the caravan begins moving again, but slower. There's been chatter all morning about a possible ritual at the river, and people are adjusting their robes and headscarves with the care usually reserved for weddings or borrowing money from an elder. You catch up with the others just as drums begin to sound from the nearby riverbank, low, steady, with a rhythm that feels like it's stirring something under the surface. People gather in small groups, murmuring prayers or humming. An elder walks by carrying a clay bowl full of rice balls, each one no bigger than a fist, and decorated with streaks of red dye. You're handed one without explanation. You bite in. Sticky, slightly sweet, spiced with something unfamiliar, maybe cinnamon, maybe crushed hibiscus seed. It clings to your tongue like a good story. A voice calls out over the crowd. A woman in a deep blue wrap steps forward, arms raised, chanting in a language older than most of the village walls. The drums quicken, people sway. You chew your rice balls slower, trying not to look like the outsider still tasting breakfast during a sacred moment. The river spirit, you've been told, favors offerings of food, especially sticky rice, honey, and anything that leaves behind a trace. A boy steps forward and tosses the last of his rice ball into the water. You hesitate, then, with sticky fingers and an even stickier sense of curiosity, you toss the last bite of yours into the current. It floats briefly, then disappears. Some say that means the spirit has accepted it. Some say it means a fish was just lucky. You stand quietly as the ritual ends, the crowd slowly dispersing, people chatting softly as if they've just left a theater. The drums fade, the river glimmers. You lick the last of the rice starch from your fingers and realize your stomach feels full in a different way, not just fed, but included. Even if the first bite came with a leg. The sun slides higher, but the heat is kinder today, filtered through river mist and morning breeze. You trail behind the caravan, feet dragging slightly, fingers still faintly sticky from the rice ball you donated to the spirit world. You're not sure if it was accepted, but your stomach is content, and your sandals haven't snapped yet. Spirit approval. Possibly? You pass a pair of elders deep in debate over whose grandmother once seduced a river god. The details vary wildly. One version includes a crocodile disguise. Another insists there was a mango involved. You nod respectfully and keep walking. Your next stop is a small outpost tucked between two crumbling stone walls, where travelers pause to refill water, swap gossip, and most importantly, eat things they won't admit to enjoying. There, on a low bench beside a crooked tree, sits an old woman hunched over a woven basket full of millet. Not the fine, golden grains you're used to. This millet is cracked, broken into rough shards, uneven, stubbornly resistant to cooking. Bowl, she asks without looking up. You hand her your gourd. She ladles in a scoop of what looks like porridge, but behaves more like gravel suspended in glue. It smells like cooked patience and mild disappointment. You thank her and sit on a nearby rock. The first spoonful is thick, chewy, almost crunchy. You chew, and then chew some more. Somewhere between the fourth and fifth bite. You start wondering whether it's the millet or your dreams that have cracked. You glance around. Most of the caravan is eating the same thing. Silently, heads down, focused entirely on the effort it takes to get through each bite. It's not bad. Exactly. It's just the kind of food that reminds you you're alive, mortal, and slightly ungrateful. The boy next to you mutters, "I miss goat fat." You nod, "I miss figs that don't fight back." Still, you keep eating, because you're hungry, because it's here, and because there's something oddly comforting about this cracked millet. It's honest, It doesn't pretend to be more than it is. Historians still argue whether cracked millet was a famine food or just a lazy cook's shortcut. Some sources say it was beloved by soldiers for its shelf life and ease of transport. Others insist it was punishment food, served to thieves and wayward cousins. You finish the bowl. Almost. One stubborn clump remains, stuck to the bottom of your gourd like it's clinging to its freedom. You scrape it out and chew with resolve. You lean back, full in that heavy, immovable way, like you've just eaten a small portion of the road itself. Someone nearby drops a pot. The clang snaps your eyes open. A young man has spilled his lunch all over his feet. He stares down at the mush of millet and sighs. Wasted food, someone mutters. Bad omen. The young man kneels, scoops up what he can, and eats it anyway. Respect. You're wiping the last grain from your lips when an old griot wanders over, tapping his stick against the stones. Cracked millet, he says with a smirk. Tastes like truth, doesn't it? You nod. I once ate it for a month straight, he continues. By the end, I could hear sand complain about the wind. You smile. That's a lot of millet. He nods gravely. Too much truth isn't always good. He sits beside you and pulls out a wrapped bundle of dried apricots. He offers one. You take it. The sweetness hits like forgiveness. The two of you sit in silence, chewing apricot and digesting cracked wisdom. A child walks by with a pigeon on her shoulder. She claims it's trained to deliver messages, but also that it once flew away for 3 months and returned with a letter addressed to someone named Mistaken Identity. You wonder, briefly, if you missed your calling as a pigeon keeper. Then you remember how loud they are. You stretch, rise, and gather your things. The caravan is stirring again. A pot is being tied to a camel. A boy is arguing with a goat. Normal things. You glance back at the old woman's basket. Still full, still unbothered. You think, not for the first time today, that sometimes the blandest food holds the loudest memories. You're walking again, slow and steady. The sun no longer punishing but still mildly disappointed in your life choices. The cracked millet is sitting like a philosophical question in your stomach, unsolvable, but undeniably present. Your donkey lags a few paces behind you, chewing a mouthful of something that looks suspiciously like someone's laundry. The road bends toward a grassy clearing where a group of young travelers has gathered in a loose circle, clearly trying to look casual while doing something deeply suspicious. You catch a glimpse of a handoff, something passed quickly from one tunic to another. You move closer. They're sharing cola nuts. You raise an eyebrow. One of them, a girl no older than 16, with a braid that could deflect arrows, grins and holds one out to you. Cola for the brain, she says, and for secrets. You take the nut. It's small, rough, and slightly bitter even before it touches your tongue. You crack it between your teeth, and it releases a burst of earthy bitterness that wakes up parts of your mouth you didn't know had taste buds. You chew, slowly, regretfully. One of the boys is writing something on a scrap of bark. Another girl giggles and nudges him, whispering, "Don't fold it like that. It'll look like a tax note." Ah, a love note. You chew faster. Turns out this little gathering isn't just a cola nut tasting party. It's a letter-writing service. They're drafting secret notes for people too nervous to write their own. Sweet lines, poetic half-lies, promises of undying affection, and only moderate debt. One boy hands you a reed pen. Want us to write something for you. You consider it. You consider the last person you were romantically interested in, probably that fig vendor who once slapped a fly so hard she knocked over her cart. She had presence. You shake your head. No thanks. Too risky. The group groans in mock disappointment. A girl next to you leans over and whispers, "We wrote a note for the emperor's cousin once. it accidentally started a border dispute. You nod. Powerful pen. They offer you another cola nut. You decline. Your jaw is still processing the first one. Suddenly, one of the younger boys dashes in. Looking panicked? Wrong delivery? He shouts. I gave the marriage note to the tax clerk's donkey. There's a beat of silence, then chaos. Several kids scatter in different directions. One grabs the love note pile. Another sprints toward a very startled donkey. The girl with the braid remains seated, calmly eating a dried fig. Not the worst mix-up, she says. Last month we accidentally proposed to a chicken seller. They accepted. You smile, still chewing. The cola's bitterness lingers, making your tongue feel like it's considering quitting. Historians still argue whether cola nuts were primarily ceremonial or just very effective social lubricants. Some claim they were used to seal deals, offer apologies, or propose marriage. Others say people chewed them just to stay awake during long speeches or longer journeys. You can believe both. You lean back, watching the group recover. One kid is redrafting a note with the urgency of someone rewriting history. Another is drawing hearts and goats, possibly unrelated. Someone's grandmother shows up and scolds them for mixing ink with foolishness. You stand, wave thanks, and step back onto the road. As you walk, you pop the second half of the cola nut into your mouth because you're stubborn. If nothing else, the flavor hits again. Sharp and unrepentant. You chase it with a swig from your water skin, which only spreads the bitterness around like a disappointed teacher. Your donkey walks beside you now, chewing slowly, eyeing you sideways. Don't start, you mutter. You've never been in love. The donkey snorts. You pull out a piece of parchment from your satchel, write a single word maybe, and fold it carefully. You tuck it into your pouch, unsure if it's meant for anyone or just for the future. Ahead, the road narrows into another dusty trail, lined with whispering grass and the scent of someone roasting peanuts. You walk on, the cola still strong in your mouth, and wonder how many love letters have accidentally shaped empires. You're still thinking about that scribbled love note in your pouch when the scent of roasted peanuts steers your feet off the main trail and toward a gathering of carts clustered near a dry baobab. Smoke curls up from a small fire where an old man in a sun-bleached tunic is roasting peanuts in a pan so dented it looks like it's survived 2 wars and a particularly aggressive goat. You approach, trying to look casual. He glances at you, gestures wordlessly toward a small woven bowl beside the fire. You sit, scoop a warm handful, and immediately burn your fingers because, of course, they're fresh from the fire. You blow on them dramatically and pretend you're not in pain. The peanuts are toasty, slightly charred at the edges, and coated in a thin glaze of salt, and something spicy, maybe ginger, maybe stubbornness. You crack the first shell open with your teeth, pop the nut into your mouth, and sigh. It's perfect. Crunchy, savory, with just enough bite to keep you alert. You reach for another, and another. You eat like someone with a secret, the old man says finally, voice low and scratchy like a broom on stone. You glance sideways. Everyone has a secret. He grunts. Yours tastes like trouble. You chew more thoughtfully after that. Beside you, 2 teenage girls are arguing in hushed tones. One's holding a folded piece of bark, the other's holding a pebble and looking deeply betrayed. I said he liked my singing, the first insists. The second scoffs. That letter was meant for me. He gave me a peanut. He gave me 2. You nod slowly. The peanut-to-affection ratio is a delicate science. Behind them, a merchant is loudly explaining how he once won a court case by handing the judge a bowl of peanuts and saying nothing. Silence, he proclaims, is the greatest persuasion, especially when salted. You chew? You agree. Then comes a commotion, a child running full speed across the clearing, waving a small reed scroll in one hand and tripping over every root in sight. He skids to a halt in front of the peanut vendor. "Wrong note! Again!" he cries. I gave the border guard the message about the donkey. The old man sighs and rubs his forehead with the back of his hand. "Did he arrest it?" someone asks. "No," the boy says. "He saluted it." A beat of silence. Then laughter, full, belly deep, echoing off the stones. Even the donkeys seem amused. You break open another shell and smile. There's something about roasted peanuts that makes the world feel manageable. They don't demand much. They're simple, satisfying, and only mildly addictive. Historians still argue whether peanuts were introduced to West Africa before or after the Mali Empire's peak. Some evidence points to early cultivation. Others suggest they arrived through trade and quickly embedded themselves in local cooking. Regardless, they've become essential eaten roasted, ground into sauce, or offered as gifts that might just alter someone's day. You grab a final handful, then stand to stretch. The vendor looks up at you. "Going to fix that secret of yours." "Maybe," you say. "Bring snacks," he advises. Makes honesty easier. You nod, toss him a cowrie, and walk away with your mouth full and your pouch just a little heavier with roasted truths. As you rejoin the caravan, you notice someone pacing nervously near the pack animals, holding a small bark scroll and glancing in every direction. You pass by, crack a peanut shell in your teeth, and keep walking. They'll figure it out. Or not. The road winds on. Ahead, the sun lowers behind a gentle ridge, and you see the flicker of cook fires beginning to rise like distant fireflies. Another night, another belly to fill, another chance to eat something weird and mildly alarming. But for now, you've got peanuts in your teeth and a secret note in your pouch. And honestly, that's better than most afternoons. Dusk arrives with a sigh cooler air, longer shadows, and the low thrum of a drum somewhere off in the distance. Your feet ache, your shoulders feel like they've been carrying the Empire's problems, and you're halfway through imagining your blanket as a throne when a sharp, savory scent cuts through the air and commands your full attention. Someone's cooking meat. Not dried, not salted, not theoretical, real meat, sizzling over a fire. You follow your nose and find a circle of travelers seated around a clay pit, where thick slabs of boar are being slowly smoked over coals. The scent is wild and rich fat crackling, juices dripping, smoke curling upward like gossip to the stars. You edge closer. A wide-shouldered man with a heavy beard and no shoes eyes you. Hungry? You nod. He gestures to an empty spot beside him and hands you a chunk of meat wrapped in a leaf. "First piece is free," he says, "if you're brave enough." You take a cautious bite. The meat is smoky, chewy, and impossibly flavorful. There's heat from ground pepper, something tangy, maybe tamarind, and a whisper of sweetness that creeps up on the second chew. You close your eyes and hum involuntarily. He grins. "Tastes like lies, doesn't it?" You raise an eyebrow. "Boar meat," he says, "is what hunters eat when they have something to brag about, or something to hide." Across the fire, a lanky man with a scar on his nose chimes in. He's lying. Boar meat is what you serve when you want people to believe you weren't lying about catching it. You take another bite and decide the truth can wait. They begin swapping stories. The bearded man claims he once wrestled the boar himself, barehanded, after it tried to steal his sandals. The scarred man says he found it already half-roasted after lightning struck a tree. A woman with one earring and two knives laughs and insists she caught it by trapping it with song. "Boars love ballads," she says. "Hate opera." You keep chewing. Someone passes around a calabash of honey beer, light and fizzy, with the taste of wildflowers and mischief. You sip and nod appreciatively. It washes down the meat and leaves a soft buzz in your chest, not drunkenness, just contentment. A child near the edge of the fire starts mimicking the boar hunt, snorting and charging at imaginary trees. The crowd encourages him, then collapses into laughter when he knocks over a cookpot. The boar may be long gone, but its legend is already growing. You lean back on your elbows, letting the fire warm your knees and the beer loosen your grin. The man beside you offers another piece of meat. You hesitate. This one, he says, was touched by a prophet. Or maybe just a very persuasive chicken. Depends who you ask. You eat it anyway. Historians still argue whether boar hunting in the Mali Empire was a noble sport or just something desperate travelers attempted when their rice ran out. Some texts claim boar meat was reserved for celebrations. Others suggest it was eaten whenever someone needed a good story to distract from bad decisions. Tonight, it's both. One woman stands and begins telling a tale how her uncle once ate boar and dreamed of marrying a tree. He woke up hugging a fence post and never ate meat again. The crowd howls. Someone starts drumming on a gourd with 2 fingers. You close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep, just to let the sound, the smoke, the flavor of the fire cling to you a little longer. When you open them again, a small boy is offering you a leaf with a single strip of meat left. For your donkey, he says solemnly. You take it. The donkey accepts it with surprising speed and no gratitude. You pat its neck. That's the last time you get profit meat. It ignores you and stares at the beer. As the fire dies down and the stars fully claim the sky, the circle of boar-bonded travelers begins to unravel. Some head to bed, others to night shifts or latrine duty or stargazing excuses. You remain for a moment longer, licking your fingers and trying to decide whether the boar was better than the frog legs. It's close. But tonight, with your stomach warm and your spirit stretched out like a cat in the sun, it might just win. You wake to the sound of chewing. Not your own, and not your donkey's, surprisingly. No, this is a particular kind of chewing, intentional, slow, suspiciously joyful. You open one eye and discover the source, a young scribe seated a few feet away, legs crossed, spoon deep in a steaming bowl of stew that smells far too rich for someone carrying ink stains and a scroll pouch that screams mid-tier pay grade. He sees you watching and raises the spoon in greeting. "Morning," he says, entirely too pleased with himself. "Fancy a taste?" You sit up slowly, brushing dust off your cheek. "What's the catch?" "No catch," he says, "just saffron stew. Maybe a little cardamom. Maybe a bribe." You raise an eyebrow. He hands you a wooden spoon and a smirk. You take a careful bite. It's luxurious, deep, earthy, complex in the way that says, "Someone who gets paid too much made this." Your spoon sinks into soft yam, rich broth, and something that might be shredded duck or very well-behaved goat. You blink. "Where'd you get this?" "Let's call it a favor," he says, "and never speak of it again." You nod solemnly, then go in for a second bite. A few minutes later, a heavy-footed guard stomps by, muttering, "Someone stole the stew meant for the treasurer's tent." The scribe doesn't flinch. You both freeze mid-chew like guilty statues. The guard moves on. The scribe grins. "I altered the records," he says casually. "Now it says the stew was sent to Provisional Scribal Review, which is me." You stare at him, spoon still hovering. "That's terrifyingly clever." "I once changed a tax log to say a chicken owed tribute," he says. "Best week of my life." Historians still argue whether scribes in the Mali Empire were strictly clerks or low-key culinary spies. Some sources suggest they wielded more power than minor nobles, simply by controlling records and food allocations. Others believe they were mostly underpaid, overworked, and quietly revolutionary, one stew pot at a time. You finish your portion, resisting the urge to lick the bowl. Why saffron, you ask? Isn't that expensive? Very, he replies. That's why we eat it in hiding. A woman walks by, sniffs the air, and squints at the scribe. You smell like someone who owes me paperwork. He flashes her a dazzling smile. And you smell like someone who's getting it by the next moon. She walks off, unimpressed. He leans in. I'll actually finish it tonight. But the charm delays the yelling. You hand back the spoon, suddenly aware that you've just eaten something that may have originated in the emperor's private pantry. You feel honored and slightly complicit. The scribe wraps up the empty bowl in cloth, tucks it under his robe, and stands. Remember, he says, if anyone asks, you had millet. You nod, cracked. Exactly. He disappears into the rows of tents with the confidence of someone who controls breakfast. You spend the rest of the morning mildly paranoid and intensely satisfied. Your donkey, for once, does not protest the lack of shared snacks, possibly because it's chewing on a scroll. You remove it, slowly. The ink reads, Shipment Saffron, 5 bundles, Imperial Seal. You roll it back up and put it far, far away from your curious four-legged companion. Later that afternoon, as you help load trade sacks onto a cart, a nearby traveler starts ranting about missing inventory. Can't trust scribes, he says, always changing things. Last month, my name was spelled wrong on the salt ledger. Do you know how hard it is to correct salt? You nod sympathetically, but internally, you're still thinking about that stew. Rich, red broth. Delicate layers of flavor. And the wild realization that someone with excellent handwriting and very loose ethics is probably eating like a king every other Tuesday. You quietly vow to befriend more scribes. Or learn to forge their signatures. Whichever comes first. The morning haze begins to lift, and so does your optimism. Your back aches, your feet protest. Even your donkey has adopted the gait of a creature emotionally preparing for retirement. All around you, the caravan lumbers forward under a pale sun that promises nothing except dust and more walking. Breakfast today is mush. You knew it the moment you saw the line forming near the central pot. People holding their bowls with the resigned posture of those who've eaten this exact meal for the past 3 mornings. You join them anyway, because rebellion doesn't come with calories. A ladle clunks into your bowl. Thick, gray-brown sorghum porridge, soft, sticky, steaming faintly. No spice, no sweetness, just warmth and the humble texture of obligation. You sit cross-legged in the shade of a cartwheel and take a bite. It tastes like boiled paper and lost dreams. You chew, you swallow, you chew again. Across from you, a griot clears his throat dramatically and announces, "Let's play a game. Memory or shame." Several heads turn. Someone groans. You keep chewing. The griot, a man with elaborate braids and a tunic covered in embroidered clan symbols, grins. "I name a lineage," he says, "and you tell me its founding story. Get it wrong, you finish your bowl." Someone shouts, "What do we win?" He shrugs, "Not finishing your bowl." "You're intrigued." He begins, "House of Combi Saleh." A woman answers immediately, founded by twin brothers, one honest, one a thief, both obsessed with sheep. Correct. She puts her bowl aside with triumph. "Next clan of Sumaoro?" "Built their house without doors," says an older man, "to show they feared no enemy." "Wrong," the griot crows. "It was windows. No windows, so ghosts couldn't get in." The man groans and takes another bite of mush. The crowd laughs. "You're called next." "Family of Niafunke," the griot announces. "What was their ancestral trade?" Your mind spins. You've heard this before. You think they were flute makers? You guess? Flutes. The griot narrows his eyes. Close. They made flute cases. For warriors. You groan. He smiles. You know the rules. You take a generous spoonful of porridge. It lands heavy. The game continues, each round weeding out more bowls. People cheer when someone else has to keep eating. By the end, only one boy remains, proudly empty-bowled, grinning like he just outwitted a librarian. The griot bows dramatically. Our champion? Your prize is no porridge. The crowd claps politely. Historians still argue whether griots served as entertainers or record keepers first. Some say they were walking libraries, holding entire dynasties in their memory. Others describe them as mischievous jokers, using humor and riddles to teach history when direct lessons would fall flat. Today, this one is clearly both. He sits beside you now, pulling from his satchel a packet of dried fruit. For your effort, he says, handing you a piece. You accept gratefully. It's a dried fig, sweet and leathery, tasting like everything the porridge forgot to be. You chew slowly. He watches you. You almost had it, he says. Nyafunky flute cases were famous. Embroidered with stories, too. Some say the music changed if the case was cursed. You nod. I'll remember next time. He chuckles. Good. Memory is currency. Someone nearby raises their hand. What if we don't have any memory? Then you'll be very well fed, the griot says, gesturing to the pot of porridge. You eat your fig in silence. Your donkey rests its head against the wheel behind you, audibly sighing. You glance at your bowl, half full of warm blandness, and decide to finish it. Not out of punishment, out of principle. Because today, you didn't win, but you didn't forget either. You scrape the last spoonful from the bowl and stand. Next time, you tell the griot, I'm bringing a flute case. He laughs, only if you fill it with something more interesting than mush. You walk back toward the main road, stomach heavy, brain slightly sharper, the taste of porridge fading beneath the sweetness of memory and fig. By midday, the air has turned syrup thick, hanging over your shoulders and clinging to your face like an overeager hug. The road ahead shimmers in waves. You're too hot to talk, too tired to complain, and too bored to care what your donkey is chewing until you realize it's your hat. You retrieve it with a half-hearted tug and place it back on your head, sweat-soaked and slightly gnawed. That's when you smell it sharp, tangy, and sweet. Pickled things. You blink and look up. A short distance ahead, a group has clustered around a wooden cart loaded with clay jars. Someone has popped the lid on one, and the smell has spread like delicious gossip through the caravan. You speed up. The cart belongs to a traveling pickle seller, who is currently explaining that each jar contains a different kind of miracle. Pickled limes, pickled onions, pickled okra, pickled something purple and mysterious that may or may not be medicinal. He's got a small table set up, and a few brave souls are already sampling slices off skewers. One woman eats a pickled egg and immediately sings an improvised song about personal regret and intestinal bravery. You approach cautiously. The seller offers you a piece of pickled mango. You accept. It's pale yellow, glistening, and smells like vinegar and sunshine. You take a bite. Your mouth floods with sour, sweet, and spicy all at once. It's like a slap and a hug. You blink twice, unsure if you've just been punished or enlightened. He offers you a second piece this time, pickled okra. You hesitate. He shrugs. Good for joints, and remembering things you swore you forgot. You eat it. It's crunchy, slippery, and deeply confusing. You taste ginger, maybe mustard seed, maybe lies. A small girl beside you eats one, makes a face like she's just seen a ghost, and then says, I liked it. No one believes her. Historians still argue whether pickling was more common for preservation or for punishment. Some records suggest it was the only way to store food through the dry season. Others say pickled goods were used to test a person's courage, especially before weddings, negotiations, or long camel rides. You try the purple thing next. It's odd. The texture is halfway between jelly and raw yam. The taste is sharp, earthy, vaguely medicinal, like a root pretending to be a fruit. You nod appreciatively. The seller beams. Made that one myself. Pickled it under moonlight. You're not sure if he means that literally, ritually, or just romantically, but it works. A man nearby is arguing that pickled lime helps with prophecy. A woman counters that pickled garlic is better for warding off cursed contracts. Someone else just wants to know if there are any pickles that don't make your nose sweat. You sit down beside the cart, now holding a small bundle of assorted pickled things wrapped in a leaf. You nibble slowly, letting the flavors sharpen your focus. It's hard to feel sluggish when your tongue is on high alert. Your donkey sniffs the leaf wrap and immediately backs away. A wise choice. As the seller continues his pitch to the next wave of customers, you overhear a trader behind you whispering, "He pickled his own memories. I swear. That's why his jars rattle at night." You keep chewing. One skewer has pickled ginger root so intense it makes your teeth hum. Another has lemon rind so sour it feels like your gums owe it money. You finish the last piece, a tiny sliver of chili-soaked cucumber, and feel your spine straighten slightly. You might never blink again. As the caravan prepares to move on, the seller presses a final piece into your hand. "For the road," he says, "but don't eat it before sunset." You look down. It's a glossy red pickle, shaped like a tear and wrapped in a twist of palm fiber. You nod solemnly and tuck it into your pouch. Later, as the sun begins to dip behind the trees, you'll pull it out again maybe, or maybe not. Some snacks are stories, some are dares. And this one? This one waits. Evening settles with a kind of grace that only comes after a day of walking, sweating, chewing aggressively sour vegetables, and arguing with a donkey over personal space. The path has narrowed into a soft ribbon of red earth, winding through tall grasses that sway with secrets. You're walking slower now, not from fatigue, although, yes, also from fatigue, but mostly because you're savoring something rare. A roasted date. You didn't even know people roasted dates. But here you are, chewing on one, warmed gently over coals, the outer skin caramelized, the inside sticky and deep like a lullaby you forgot you knew. It tastes like sunset and honey and something quietly magical. You bought it from a woman carrying a basket balanced perfectly on her head, who refused to speak but winked as you took your portion. Her silence made it feel like a gift or a spell. You haven't decided yet. The roasted date is somehow even richer than its raw form. Softer, more indulgent. The sweetness has deepened, intensified. It clings to your molars like it doesn't want to leave. And you let it stay. Around you, the caravan is shifting into nighttime rhythms. Mats are unrolled. Fires are lit. Someone is boiling tea in a copper kettle that reflects the firelight like molten coin. You sit nearby, legs stretched, date pit still warm in your palm. A young man next to you is carefully slicing open a sack of dried fruit and stuffing each with roasted peanut paste. He offers you one. You accept. It's decadent, crunchy inside, sticky outside, sweet and salty at once. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs, learned it from a Tuareg merchant. Said it helps you walk farther. Does it? No, he says, but it makes the walking less annoying. You agree? Historians still argue whether date roasting was a culinary innovation or just an accidental discovery born from leaving fruit too close to the fire. Some suggest roasted dates were reserved for guests. a mark of welcome. Others say they were simply a way to deal with overripe leftovers. You, at this moment, do not care. You just want another one. A girl across the fire is trying to tell a ghost story. Every time she gets to the creepy part, someone coughs or a goat bleats, ruining the tension. She rolls her eyes and starts over for the third time. You watch the firelight flicker across faces: traders, travelers, story hunters, herb peddlers, donkey apologists, the same faces you've walked beside for weeks, but only now beginning to really see. Someone passes a pot of rice spiced with cloves and wild mint. You take a scoop. It's fluffy, aromatic, and politely insists on being eaten with roasted date if you know what's good for you. You oblige. A woman adds a sliver of candied ginger to hers. A boy tries to roast a dried fig and sets his sleeve on fire. It's all very peaceful. You lean back, full but not heavy, warmed by food and fire and familiarity. Your donkey lies curled at your feet, twitching slightly in a dream you hope doesn't involve your hat. You pull out the leaf-wrapped mystery pickle from earlier, still nestled in your pouch. You hold it up to the light of the flames. It glows slightly, or maybe that's just your imagination. You unwrap it slowly, bite-sized and gleaming red. You consider the day-cracked millet, emotional stew, paperwork stew, monkey-stolen mangoes, ghost-thwarted pickles, a scribe with questionable ethics. You eat the pickle? It's sweet and hot and strange. It burns through your mouth and spreads warmth through your chest, down your arms, out through your fingers. Not painful, just vivid. You laugh softly, and the donkey opens one eye in judgment. I didn't say it out loud, you mutter. The fire dims, the rice pot is empty. The girl finally finishes her ghost story, and someone pretends to faint for dramatic effect. You lie back, the roasted date pit still in your hand, warm as memory. Some days feed your belly. Others feed your soul. Today, somehow, did both. Night has folded itself completely over the caravan now, and the world feels smaller, quieter, like someone pulled a wool blanket across the sky and told the wind to hush. The fire's down to soft coals, and your stomach, for once, isn't arguing with you. You lie on your mat, head resting against your rolled-up shawl, arms still sticky from fig syrup and memory. Around you, the low murmur of nighttime talk drifts like smoke. Two men are debating the correct way to roast yam without angering spirits. A woman is snoring gently beside her clay water jug, and someone, probably the same person who always does, is quietly singing to the stars in a voice too soft to name. You unwrap one last snack, a sliver of sugared papaya. Someone handed you hours ago and said, "Don't eat this until the moon's at its highest." You check the sky. That's now. You nibble it slowly. It melts, instantly sweet, floral, soft as breath. It tastes like kindness. And you realize this is the last snack of the day, of this whole journey. Really. You've eaten your way across an empire, through markets and checkpoints, fireside stories and fermented bets, through pickled okra and poetic stew theft, through monkey heists, bark philosophy, porridge punishment, and ghost-approved rice balls, and now sugared papaya, the perfect ending. You exhale. Historians don't agree on how often people truly feasted in the Mali Empire. Some say the food was modest, the wealth reserved for gold and salt and scholarly scrolls. Others argue that even the humblest journey could become a procession of flavor. Because in Mali, food was more than survival. It was identity, hospitality, art, mischief, memory. Tonight, as your limbs settle into the earth and the soft dust of the Sahel gathers beneath your back, you don't need a scroll to confirm it. You feel it. Your pouch is nearly empty now. A few crumbs, one stubborn peanut, a smudge of honey at the bottom that you'll find days from now and smile about. The fire gives one last pop, then quiets. Your donkey sighs beside you, finally at peace, finally still. A full belly, a soft patch of ground, and no goats in sight. You close your eyes, and the empire hums. Its stories baked into millet, its history pressed into sticky rice, its people wrapped in the soft glow of tamarind twilight and pickled wisdom. You've walked through Mali with your mouth open and your heart wider than you meant to show. And it was enough. You were fed. You were welcomed. You were part of the story. So now, slow your breathing. Let your jaw soften. Feel the weight of your limbs as they sink into the mat, into the earth, into rest. Let your thoughts drift like smoke above a nighttime fire, curling gently, then fading. There's nothing more to chew. No more miles to walk. Just the quiet. Just the fullness. Just the peace of a day well wandered and a belly well fed. You're safe. You're home. You're asleep.